Modern medication did not work for me. Modern medication did not work for me. Modern medication did not work for me. Modern medication.
My favorite thing is plaque that says the most valuable question of your children are roots and languages.
Yeah, we just
I have extra folders.
It's
all right. Now we have extra.
pretty good. Busy days these days.
Oh, yeah,
sure.
Jim, you're a busy guy now.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Are you?
Oh, yes, I did. I have answers for you. Let's go with that.
No, I stopped at the Curry County Commission. And I went in because, every was holding a knife that had 700 cargo. So it really didn't issue. But, so I went in and I talked to them. I was told they don't attend.
Okay. Cool. They has had dispensaries for years, right? Curry County, they had some.
We've never had, we've had a couple people doing it in the,
Okay, I see.
just outside, behind the car. But they were larger.
This is at the beginning. They're about 10 minutes late.
All right, we're ready. We're going into the conference. You guys have work.
Okay.
Should I keep lower
So
than
they have, yeah,
Well, you do.
I'm hoping that they just take a neutral aspect.
Thanks everyone for coming. This is our March 6th, 2014 Advisory Committee on Medical Marijuana meeting. We're going to begin with some introductions, and we can start on this end of the table with Alice and go around.
Alice Ivany, patient advocate.
Sandy Burbank, I'm a patient. I'm also the executive director of Mothers Against Misuse and Abuse, and we have 3 clinics in the state.
Sarah Bennett, I'm a patient caregiver grower. I'm the executive director of Human Collective and consultant for OMMP.
I'm Ben McInnes, and I'm a patient caregiver grower.
Todd Delato, I'm the ACMM chair, also chair of the Horticultural Research and Safety Committee, and serve on the Rules Advisory Committee for the dispensary rules, and president of Can Research. And I also want to invite everybody after the meeting from 3 till 6 at the Can Research office at 4th and Western. We're having a meet and greet for so you could meet Corvallis dispensary owners and enjoy some food and good times.
Cheryl Smith, patient, caregiver, activist, patient advocate, and one of the founders of Compassionate Oregon. And I resigned my job from the Compassion Center, so I'm not that anymore.
Jim Clark, member of the ACMM. I believe this may be my last active meeting. I've been here since the inception, 8 years, never missed a day. I love serving the people that need this. I have filed for House District 1 representatives, House of Representatives again, and I'm also an applicant for an MMF in Curry County, and hope to keep Curry County neutral, which I stopped and talked to them yesterday on the moratorium process. So 3 people shouldn't be controlling 700 people's health care.
Art Richards, I'm president of the board for the MS Society of Portland, and that was where I got my interest in marijuana. And I'm also a property casualty insurance agent, and we've gotten signed up so we can write insurance for the dispensaries and the growers and whatever. So anyway, so for what that's worth.
I'm Julia Glick, patient and grower. Dave Lund, I'm the intern administrator for the Center for Health Protection, Public Health Division.
I'm Aaron Consul. I am a program analyst with the Oregon Medical Marijuana Program.
I'm Tracy Candela. I am the section manager assistant for OMMP.
And Tom, if you want to start introductions, we're going to go this way.
I'm Tom Burns with the, what do I do? Director of Pharmacy Program for the Oregon Health.
Brian Hansen, chemist.
Kristen Morrison, patient. Rhea Graham, patient, caregiver, owner of Albany's Canna Kitchen and Research in Albany, Oregon. Yay.
I'm Catherine Morgan, and my husband Jody Morgan. I'm on the board with Northeast Lancaster Neighborhood Association Communication Officer.
George Miller, caregiver.
Perry Stripling, Mercy TV.
Peke, Mercy TV, grower, advocate.
Very good. Well, thank you all for joining us here in Corvallis, and thanks to the OMMP staff for holding the meeting so close to where I don't have to travel from.
Fair enough.
Exactly.
Fair
Thank
enough.
you so much. And yeah, and this will be my last meeting as ACMM chair. At the end of the meeting, we're going to be electing new or renew officers. Anyway, we've got some minutes to approve from December 17th, 2013. Has everyone gotten an opportunity to review them? Does anybody wish to suggest any changes?
Sandy?
I just have one on the third page. I was trying to figure out who Michelle was, and I think it's supposed to be Michael. It's under schedule next meeting, the fourth line at the end of the line.
Okay.
And, yeah. One thing is that on page 2, let's see, if we do the second paragraph, that it says, Mr. Mackin stated that since he's been on the board, the OMP has never provided a balance sheet. And I actually, my recollection serves, I actually said balance sheet, the standard of detail following the state.
Several times.
Several times. Mr. Mackin stated there have been several requests by the ACMM. Oh, there was one other that, there was 2 that said that for over a year I've been requesting this, and it's actually been since I've been in 2010 since on the board. So it wasn't a year, it was since 2010 the first one. And then, yeah, so basically, and again, a standard and detailed balance sheet on the last sentence. Don't need to produce a standard and detailed balance sheet in profits and loss statement. And then not, as there is no accounting standards, 2 standard accounting practices based on standard accounting practices. And then Ms. Nichols responded that dates the handout represents. I didn't quite understand what that says.
I've got a few. These are just mostly typos. Page 2, second paragraph after budget review, 4th line, Ms. Nichols responded, she did raise some questions to the ACMM, was not receiving and answer, should be an answer. Then on page 4, the third to the last paragraph, Ms. Page stated that people can go to Cover Oregon misspelled there. Then on page 6, the third paragraph, Mr. Michaels asked about confidentiality bumps. Was that right? What does that mean? Does anybody know?
It was with Tom Burns' dialogue. I think he's talking about the confidentiality regarding the name and address of the medical marijuana facilities. Do you remember that dialogue, Tom?
That they can't be within 1,000 feet of another facility, but bumps doesn't sound like the right.
The problem, Cheryl, is if I've got a facility on this side of the street and that side of the street that applied they're gonna bump against each other.
Oh, okay.
And only one of them will get approved.
Should we clarify that?
They're talking about a buffer zone, basically.
Yeah, maybe it's 1,000-foot buffer zone would be a better way. I use the word bumps.
Oh, well, yeah, they had, Mr. Michaels asked about confidentiality bumps, and it was just not a word that I was familiar with.
I get it, yeah, thank you for the clarification,
Reword it any way you want, but
Yeah.
that's
No, I get it.
Okay.
That was just an intent.
That's fine.
Perhaps deleting confidentiality.
No, I understand the whole deal.
Well,
I just didn't know
maybe
the word
perhaps
bump.
proposing to delete confidentiality, whether Brian said it or not, it might clarify what he was asking about.
Yeah.
By just bumps. Sandy?
One last thing, on page 5, the second paragraph of the last line, Commissioner McLean responded 24K people, we talked about 24,000, is that what that is? Maybe 240,000?
Are you asking for clarification?
I'm asking what that means. Does that mean 240,000? I've never seen that written that way in our minutes, and if it means that, then we should just write that out.
Oh, this is.
Yeah, that's probably what they,
Okay, so I think that.
Okay. All right, any more suggested changes to the minutes? Anyone want to make a motion to approve the minutes with changes?
And so, make a motion?
A second.
All in favor of approving, one more thing before we go. I just want to acknowledge, I didn't get the chance to read this revised draft thoroughly. So just trusting that the changes that I submitted last week were added to it, I would support approving them with changes. Okay, all in favor of approving the minutes with changes?
Aye.
Motion passed. Minutes approved for December 17th, 2013. Okay, now we're moving on to the Board of Health Authority Administration giving uninterrupted administrative reports.
Sure, thank you, thanks. Good to see all of you again. I really don't have much. Maybe just give you a quick update on leadership issues. So we do have a new Public Health Division Director, Lillian Shirley, came to work in December. So we're delighted to have the top spot filled, and she launched right into a legislative session here too. So that's great. So next steps are, since I'm interim, the Public Health Division Deputy Director is also interim, and so the next thing is getting those two positions filled. So I think the Public Health Deputy Director position is posted right now, and expect the Center Administrator interim in right now to be posted pretty soon. So I think over the next few months we'll finally get permanent people into all the leadership positions, and that'll be terrific. So I don't know if this is my last meeting with you or the next one is, but we're getting down to the end, and I'll be headed back to my day job as drinking water administrator. So, but I'll just say if I don't get a chance, it's been fun. So we do, and I'll make just a couple comments about the legislative session. So, wow, it's been pretty active for marijuana issues, hasn't it? Wow. So we've mostly been, pretty, interested observers. As we kind of watch, and they're gonna wrap up this week. So whatever comes out of, and I'm sure you've all been following the action in the newspapers. We do have one thing that came our way. There was a bill on veterans issues, and interestingly enough, it got amended to put a section in on medical marijuana card discounts for disabled veterans.
Yay.
And so of course that bumped it up on our radar screen, because now that's a real issue. And so the legislative liaisons for the department, or for the health authority, actually got with the legislator who had put that amendment in, and said, well, wait a minute, we could just do this by rule. We don't really need a statute for that. And so that was the deal. And so I think we have in your packet, this is like hot off the press in the last few days. We actually are bringing to you, we'll find it here so I can guide you to it. There's a statement of need, and then there, yes, kind of after this particular. I don't know if I'm getting this out of order here. I probably am. No.
There's also
okay. So
order
there's,
content.
yeah,
Order.
yeah, we'll come back to that, and then it's right behind that. But there's a statement of need and fiscal impact, which is standard form, and then actual rules drafted up by our Assistant Attorney General. And I would just call your attention to page 2 of 3, because that's where it is, down at the bottom. And that's the language the legislator wanted. And so any of these categories that are listed here, they get the maximum discount that we have in our rules, which would be $20. And so, I said, hey, you know what? We got a ACMM meeting coming up, and we'll put it before you, and we can move ahead with this. The other thing that's on the last page, you see some language crossed out, and that's just basically kind of this, outdated language. There's, that the fees are effective on or after October 1, 2013. Well, guess what? It's now 2014, and Shannon suggested we just clean that up. We don't need that in there. So basically, it's that one little underlined section. And we are happy to move forward with that. So we'll just have that before you, and you can give us a sense of what you'd like us to do on that. So, and I'll leave it at that, so that can sort of be on the agenda. Okay.
We're going to discuss that later.
We can discuss that after his report.
Okay. Okay, and then I think I'll turn to staff. I think you want to go over this carefully.
So, this is a snapshot of the statistics as of, I guess yesterday. We currently have 57,455 medical marijuana patients, 29,155 unique growers, meaning we're not counting caregivers, meaning we're not counting you twice if you caregiver for more than one person. Same with growers, same issue, there are 44,528. The number of registrations where a patient lists him or herself as a grower, 36,144. Number of registrations where a patient lists another person as a grower is 28,570. Currently, there are 1,539 physicians who've got a current patient on the medical marijuana program. You can see the number of out-of-state participants. There's close to 1,000 patients, 979, 416 caregivers, and 453 growers. We've included the condition count. Obviously, severe pain is the top condition, 56,268, followed by spasms at 14,851, nausea 8,500, cancer a little over 2,500, seizures just under 1,500, cachexia about 1,000, HIV/AIDS 674, glaucoma 931, PTSD 270, and agitation due to Alzheimer's is 73. And then we've separated out the applications where the only condition listed is pain. You can see that significantly fewer than the application of pain. We're at 20,000 fewer, 35,313, and the number of applications we've received where the only condition is post-traumatic stress disorder is 86.
Thanks for breaking those out here. That's really helpful with the pain and the PTSD.
Is there a way that those are delineated by pain, like for example back pain, or is it just pain?
They'll note that on any physician statement. Those are pretty thorough, but we don't categorize it in our database that way to be able to collect it. We sort of started that years ago, and we found there's so many variations and reasons for pain we couldn't even categorize them.
Do you have any explanation as to why we've dropped over 2,000 patients?
So these are kind of snapshots. I'm sure, if we pulled the data in 6 weeks, it would be up. There's little spikes, kind of depending on how many people we've had. Yeah, like they may have went through and made sure all of the expired cards were actually expired prior to winning the court. So there's some
adjustment.
issues like that.
This
There's
time of year,
these are kind of estimates, but it's, yeah, each day is different
Okay.
time of year. But we could get a plethora of renewal application all of a sudden next week and this week.
You're saying that I don't need to light my hair on fire.
Are you tracking pending applications?
We are, but not in this count of patients. That's where the, if you see the asterisks, the number of registrations, those total up to higher than the number of patients. That includes pending applications. We're trying not to, for the patient count, to count the same patient twice if they have an active license and a pending application. But they are counted in the registration totals with the little asterisks there.
Is it possible that that would make a difference in the numbers as well?
Not for
Not this one?
the patient count, the way we run that total, but if I were to run it in a way of total number of registrations that were protected, this number would be higher because it would count the same person.
Any more questions for, we're just limiting questions to the committee.
Seriously, how can
More
there be
questions? Excuse me, Rita,
153 growers for out of state when you are required to grow?
Dr. Weber.
After public comment.
Jerry?
Yeah, more of an observation, and I'm just looking at these numbers. It looks like, and correct me if I'm wrong, that all the other causes, that all the other conditions are about equal with that severe pain. Is that right?
Oh, you mean if you total them?
Yeah, if you total. So it's about, severe pain really accounts for at least half. It looks like most of these symptoms, spasm, nausea, cancer, are physical pain. The only emotional pain or mental pain that I see is post-traumatic stress disorder. Is that right? That's
Well, also, application and also usually well, when it was added, it was, I remember it being said it was the only thing that wasn't. Yeah.
So I remember that being sort of the argument about.
It would be interesting to see that, as mental pain qualifies, if we broke down severe pain, it would be very interesting to see, and gave people an option to comment, would it be emotional pain or would it be physical pain?
I think physical pain is typically the.
I think so too. It's very interesting that mental pain, though, or post-traumatic stress disorder is now really right there. So it's amazing, truncating.
Can you speak louder, please?
Pardon me?
Can you speak louder?
Yeah, I just said it's a
Yeah.
major truncation in terms of mental pain, and then how close is mental pain related to physical pain. And there's so many great questions that come up in this committee. So I'd love to see funding move in that direction. So thank you for your statistics. This is really helpful.
Thank you.
So, budget review and fee adjustment?
For sure.
Yeah.
Oh, I brought it.
Oh.
So, let's send part of them this way. Part of them this way. Give a minute for that too. Just like and then I think there's also in your packet, there's sort of a graph, the ongoing graph of the applications and the types and all of that the staff puts together. Yeah. So I guess my report today is sort of good news and bad news. So we'll start with some good news. Good news is the fee reduction that you all approached the legislature on and got in the 2013 session. We got that fee implemented in rule and as scheduled in October. And so the new, sort of reduced fees were effective in October. So if you look on the grant lookup report here, sort of the top line is, revenue coming in by month. And you've all seen these for some time. And, does that mean revenue is going down? I don't know. it's hard to tell with a couple of months, but just you can sort of flag October as when the reduced fee took effect from the 2013 session. So that's the good news. This report, really gives just the high level, expenses so that, we can all sort it out here. Personal services is people, staff, those are our staff costs on a monthly basis. Services and supplies, I like to call pencils, and rent and stuff like that. And cost allocation is basically the departmental overhead that applies to all programs. So you can see what that is. And skipping up a line, the transfers, these are the spot where the transfers out to the other public health programs, the 7 or 8 public health programs. And we'll talk about those in a minute. You can see there's just one giant transfer in January. And that's basically because, boy, we had a long time unpacking sort of the 2013 session and then sort of getting the budget structure set up for this biennium because the division reorganized itself, actually 1.5 times. And so the boxes all got moved around. So there's been a huge effort to get all the connections made in the financial system and all that sort of thing. So I'll get to your question here in a minute. So the transfer that you see in January is for all 7 months. And so from here on, it's all set up now, and you'll see transfers month by month by month by month. So
That was what you already answered.
Yep. So it'll be nice and even from here on. And then let's see, the other thing I'd mention is look at cash balance. And this is a very simple report because it's a very simple program. It's cash in and it's cash out. And we ended up with a pretty substantial cash balance back at the beginning of the biennium, which was big. That's why we had the discussion about the fee reduction and all of that. It continues to be a pretty substantial cash balance. We'll see how that works out as the reduced fees go on, and I expect to see some convergence. We'll either see that or we won't, but we'll all get to see it together. So that's kind of where that's at. On the back page, actually added this because you guys asked for this. Here are the actual transfer amounts for the 13-15 biennium. So you can see exactly what they're going to be. Now, here's the bad news. The 2013 legislature, Ways and Means, actually added a one biennium, $1.5 million transfer for contraceptive care, as you see in the note down at the bottom. I know that you guys probably are not happy about that, but that's what they did. Although the good news is it's only for one biennium, and then it's back to the old amount.
Did you say 1.5 million?
Mm-hmm.
It says 2.7 million.
Of that, 1.5 million is what the legislature added for this biennium. So
Okay,
then
so
it'll go
they
back.
added to what we were already.
Yeah, it was about $1.1 million. Yeah.
So it's sort of the same thing as grabbing the money for the general fund.
Call it what you will. Yeah.
From the patients.
Yeah. So the legislature appropriates funds.
This is the first I've even heard about this.
Well, I actually had to go hunting for it. Like I said, we spent a long time unpacking the 2013 legislature because they did a lot of things. And so anyway, I did get to the bottom of it, and that's what it is. So you can see that there. So the bottom line is you can expect the total transfer, and then of course there's cost allocation overhead associated with some of these, and you'll see some of them are zero, and again, those are estimates. We don't know exactly what that'll be, but that's what it was last biennium. And some of them are zero because they're transfer payments and the department doesn't apply overhead to transfer payments that go out of the department and stuff. But the bottom line here is what you can expect $9.5 million in transfers in this biennium. So if you look back on the front page, you can see we're about on schedule. You know, 2.6 million for 7 months. That's just about exactly right.
So this that's been transferred this far counts towards this?
Yeah. On the back is what the total will be for the entire month, so that everybody knows what to expect.
So this is sort of a new sweep in essence?
Well, it's not, it's not a sweep. What we mean in terms of sweeps is if the legislature occasionally, back during the very dark days of the general fund, a lot of our other fund fee accounts really had money removed from the legislature, the flood holes in the general fund budget. This isn't really a sweep because it's allocated specifically.
Didn't they do 75% of all kinds of agencies at one point?
Yeah.
A couple of years back.
Yeah. But hey, things are better now. The economy's improving, the general fund's recovering a little bit. So, I don't think there's sort of the same sense of general urgency about cash balances that there used to be during the dark days that we have come out of, thankfully. Okay, so let's see. Maybe I'll just stop there. So that's the financial report. Last time I was here, there was a lot of, and you mentioned it, Ben, in the minutes, there was sort of this discussion about, I don't know, financial statements or something like that. And at one point, last time when we were talking, I said, well, you'll recall, I said, well, we do sort of a thing for drinking water for the advisory committee that's got a little more of a summary thing on it. And I did look into that, and then I realized really it's not any more helpful than this for you guys, because in drinking water, we have 13 of these. And so what I do for the Drinking Water Advisory Committee is an exercise to roll all those up so that they can all see what is the large, big picture, because it's hard to look at 20 reports. We've only got one here. This is it. And again, it's cash in, cash out. So it's pretty straightforward. Now, just be aware that, and this is something that we've done for our center. So this is sort of our own little thing, and it's just a query from the financial system, is querying all the numbers. The division is actually right now in process of developing a budget tracking tool that all programs are going to use, and it's going to roll up to the center level and then roll up to the division level, so Lillian can see where we're at overall. And that's something that doesn't really exist right now. So we're pretty excited about that. It's a ways off. It's going to involve a lot of the information systems programming and all kinds of things that you might guess to really develop kind of like what we have here on a fairly simple level, which is turning data into information. Data is not that useful, information is. And so when we start seeing those later in the biennium, then we'll bring those. And I suspect they're going to be quite a bit more detailed. And I don't know if more detail is helpful. Probably isn't. But anyway.
I just have one.
Sure.
And maybe this has been discussed before and it just never occurred to me, but I don't see personnel. I'm assuming personal services is personnel.
People. Yep.
So we have just $127,000 personnel wages?
It's wages, benefits,
That's all we pay these people a month?
No, it's
like, yeah, 32 people?
Benefits and other personnel expenses are now about 54% of salary.
54% salary?
Of salary.
Oh.
So whatever you get paid, the cost to the state is about 1.54 times that, because it's per.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Health insurance.
And they have there's how many people working in it?
27.
And $127,000 a month?
Well, and frankly, they're not, you can do the math, they are not very highly paid.
No, that's why I didn't think it was included, yeah.
Yeah, they're not very high. Yeah, you thought it should be higher.
I thought it was something.
Some of us think it should be higher too. Yeah, that's, yeah, so, anyway, so that gives you sort of the, the look at the cash in, cash out basis. For the program.
So we can see that, as usually is the case, and our clinics reflect this too, starting sometime in the fall, the number of people signing up for cards goes down and the income goes down.
Yeah, I think so,
But
right?
it's
Are you
starting to
looking
go
at,
up
are you looking
again.
at this?
Yeah, I'm looking at that compared to
Yeah,
this.
very
and,
good, yeah, perfect.
And it's, well, I know, because with the clinic,
Yeah.
we barely make it in October, November, because
Yeah.
things are plummeting,
Yeah.
and then, January they start going up again.
Yeah.
And so knowing that and knowing they're gonna increase more, we're still, and we've got more than 5 million in the bank right now, we're still, the rates are still too high because all this excess money that, it's gonna be even more excess by the end of the year.
We'll see how it turns out. It's hard to predict.
It's not hard to predict because you just look at this over years.
It won't go to zero. The cash balance will not go to zero.
It's only hard to predict if the legislature comes in and steals it.
Well, no, I was thinking more in terms of predicting what the revenue's gonna be with the new fee structure. It's because it depends on, if all of a sudden there are a lot more card holders, revenue could actually go up.
Yeah.
If there are a lot more card holders with a discount, then revenue will go down.
Well,
So-
depends on how many more
Yeah.
there are overall.
Yeah, that's actually the rub.
Yeah.
It's really, as you can tell, really hard to predict.
Yeah.
Although there are some
There are some
seasonal
trends that are, really predictable.
It's all about how many patients apply for cards.
Yes.
Yeah, it really is.
Sandy?
Having a clinic since '05, definitely we've seen the cycle of the wintertime, records start coming in this time of year. But we're seeing a lot more people coming in now that they can buy their cannabis and not having to have a grower and a grow site. I think we're gonna see a big increase on that.
You may be right.
I've already seen it.
Yeah. Long term, that may be.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, and then, there's so many other things here too. Gosh, we're talking about legalization. What happens then?
Oh, that's not gonna happen tomorrow, though.
That's a whole.
Well, tomorrow is a relative term. In my view of things, 2 or 3 years is tomorrow.
Okay.
And,
When you talk about bienniums,
it's there's a lot of things up in the air.
Well, look at Washington.
Yeah, and we'll kind of see how they go and how Colorado goes.
One county in Colorado,
what
brought in
happens.
$1 million. One county
The money is
Colorado
getting
brought in
people's
$1 million
attention.
the first month.
Ben?
Yeah, just a couple clarifications. One, just to address because I appreciate you providing what you have provided and continue to provide, thank you. But really, when you're saying that there's information here, in the world of business, no one would buy a business, run a business, monitor a business, or do anything with a business off this document, or any structure, right? You know what I mean? And so, I know you guys have all the detailed stuff and print it out at, like you said, fingertips. Is there a reason why you feel we're not knowledgeable enough to interpret detailed reports, or is it just, okay, if we've requested it over and over again, I'm just asking, do you feel that we don't need it, we don't deserve it, we're not smart enough to get it, we're smart enough, but we don't, what is the point that this is all good?
Well, these are our standard reports for every single program, every single fund type. This is what the managers use to manage their programs.
This is all they use to manage the program?
Yeah, that's all you need. Cash in, cash out on other funds.
So how do you know which personnel get 20 grand or 50 grand, which one should be paid more, should be paid less? How do you know, when I look at this, right, it,
Are you spending too much on pens?
yeah,
Are you spending too much on
there's
ink?
no way to
No, we
parse
don't
it
want
out,
all-
you
yeah.
see, and so what it does is that it makes it so, like from this day, sort of like what was mentioned, it seems to me that there's sort of some areas where there's not enough money being spent, and other areas where there are, but since we're advising on the fee structure and the finances with the Oregon Medical Program, that's the one main thing we're cited with doing. It seems like us having access to detailed accounting records would be
Sure.
fairly important.
Well, and so I'll just warn you in advance. When you break it down below these levels, I think there's, Tom can help me with this, maybe not. There's about 4,000 object codes, individual object codes in the financial.
And I'm aware of that, and out of those 4,000 object codes, you know, it's like, unless it operates very differently than QuickBooks, there's ways to, you know, understand, have more detail than this, or less detail than the line item. You know, and actually, and if all I can get is the 4,000 items, 4,000 line items, we'll take it. That's what I'm saying, if you wanna give me a box of 10,000 pages, that's better to me than one page that doesn't disclose anything. And then we can parse it amongst all our people, because there's a lot of people, not just me, that have a lot higher level of knowledge than I do, you know.
Well, one of the things that I think is, which is why we use this, we start here and see if something's out of bounds.
And that's what I'm saying,
You know,
we haven't been
and that's,
reporting
and
that.
that's what your secretary does. Is, you know, she's looking at this stuff, and if something's out of bounds, this is what I do as a section manager with drinking water, with, by the way, you know, 12 or 13 of these, is to, yes, you say, well, something goofy. And if it is, then we drill down and figure out, okay, what is it?
And that's what we're saying.
And so, you know, I'm not sure what you would do with that.
Well, that's the point that that's what I'm saying, as someone who's advising on the, you know, that's been charged with that and being our main task, is they're the one that actually have authority to do anything, right? Is that it's, and I don't want to labor this too short time, but I guess let me just get to it real quick. Are you going to be able to provide us with accounting?
The one that the division is developing is gonna have more detail.
What I'm saying is, can you provide us something now?
Again,
Before the division's
we
done.
need to talk, we need to talk, yeah, I need some guidance from you.
Okay.
Because we've got the 4
a detailed
big object
standard,
codes, and we got the 4 or 5,000, whatever it is
exactly,
here.
and so it's yes, so what it is, it's a detailed and standard profit and loss statement.
I don't,
detailed standard balance.
we don't do balance sheets, we don't do profit and loss.
Okay, so
How do you do business?
They have the
version
agency
of that,
do
yeah, I'm
business?
sorry, and I'm sorry, I don't know the agency terminology, but the equivalent of a detailed statement.
Well, I'll tell you
I
what.
understand, like when you
How
talk
about if
about
I
drilling
do-
down.
How about if I do this?
Yeah.
How about if I send you the object code structure, so you can see what it looks like?
Well, I understand though, there's gonna be
And
4,000
you can-
items in it.
Well, but, you know, but then at least you can look at it and sort of give me some feedback on what you're looking for. Yeah.
Okay, something really quick, we're
Sorry.
trying to move on.
Yeah, I would just make the recommendation that, Ben, you receive all that and then report back to the group or contribute to the next discussion on it. But, you know, I don't need that, but, you know, it would be good for one person who really wants this and is able to spend that time and energy. I'd say take it on and take what there is and report back.
Okay. All right, and just one last word on this. I think part of the frustration that I guess you missed last meeting, but we expressed it in the December meeting, though, is that it's been the last time we had an analyst come in and report to us and discuss projections and answer questions was December of 2010. And that's when Chris Grorud, his last meeting with us. And he was excellent. He was very thoughtful. He explained his methodology and how he came up with the projections. And all of these columns for the future months were always filled out. And Chris actually was very good, at projecting. You know, the actuals came very close to what he projected. And he proposed very meaningful fee reductions that actually effectually reduced the fee enough so we could maintain the cash operating balance for what is it, 3 months or 6 months? And that's kind of what we had come to expect after a while, but we haven't gotten that. And the legislature, I was also on the legislative advisory committee that wrote the omnibus bill in 2005 that created the ACMM, among other things. And I know there was a great interest for the legislature to not only, advise the program on the administrative aspects, but also to recommend fee adjustments. And also, it's not explicit in statute, but also to enhance the transparency and accountability of the program. And that transparency and accountability is necessary for us to do our jobs to advise you too. So I see where Ben's coming from with the documents, financial documents that he expects for a business, and those also, translate to agency financial reports. But I think what added to the frustration the last time was we didn't get this. It took us years of working with the program to get a report in this format. And what we got instead was
excuse me,
yeah.
I've been to a bunch of your meetings, and we handed this out every time.
Right, not last meeting. We got a thing with tables, and the data was just unrecognizable. They didn't have column headings. It was really difficult to understand what the, no.
We get these every month.
Yeah, but
these are available every month.
Right, but we didn't get it. We had a very useless financial report, and
I don't know what that would have been.
Yeah.
So,
And anyway.
Yeah, these are our reports.
And so over the last few months, we've been watching the cash balance build up, and it's just important. We obviously need a fee reduction to bring the cash balance down. We're requesting a projection and a recommendation for that fee reduction.
Well, here's what I would suggest. Okay, you got one. Okay, so if for the division right now, question, ask, and answer.
Well, we got one for October, but it was a very shallow.
Well,
and
here's what I would suggest.
Please let me finish.
Okay.
We had a rules advisory committee, and the ACMM also advised on that fee reduction. And the fee reduction that we ended up with, we proposed a much steeper fee reduction, and we advised that the fee reduction that the legislature wanted was not deep enough, and it was problematic because it had several categories of low incomes. And I think we were right. We were absolutely right in our analysis and our recommendation, and we thank you for the data that you've provided us as well. But we see that we see now that the fee reduction wasn't steep enough, and so we ask that next meeting we do have a solid recommendation for fee reduction, because we're also going through another administrative rule process with the MMFs, and it would be good to include a fee reduction while we're going through the expense of doing administrative rules changes for there. So, but anyway, can we have your commitment on that?
This is something that I'm going to have to talk with our director about, because I can tell you the other thing overlaying all this is with all the new startup at the dispensary, all the discussion of legalization, the department is not excited about being on the rate list. Anytime soon.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
So first of all, kind of think this through.
The department or
What
the
does that
agency,
mean, Dave?
the authority?
The health authority is not excited about generating interest in, as these other things are playing out politically. So,
What do you mean? What kind of
so
interest?
here we are where,
And being analyzed.
we went forward, we helped you guys go forward with the fee reduction. I understand you didn't get all that you wanted. I'm gonna just tell you that I think it'd be highly unlikely for the division to go forward with additional fee reduction, right after the legislature has acted.
But you proposed a fee reduction for disabled vets?
The legislature
Oh,
proposed that.
What kind of
Yes.
interest is the OHA trying to not have?
Just just not be out there on this issue while all these things are
What
playing
issue?
out.
Can I paraphrase
The
you for a
whole,
minute?
the
Can I
whole
paraphrase you for a minute?
legalization, the whole.
I think the Oregon Health Authority sees itself as part of the three triangle of targets, which is the dispensary and the legalization, correct me if I'm wrong? And that it would rather
Targets.
not be involved in that political war?
Not, what I'm suggesting
Is that
is
what you're
we're
saying?
not
That's why
gonna
you
wa- we're not
associated
gonna
the
wanna
agency with
add,
those two issues?
we're not gonna wanna add to it.
To add
Well-
to the political controversy?
Just the whole interest.
Okay, then I'm heading somewhere here.
Okay.
I'm heading somewhere
All
here.
right, go ahead.
So, rather than, and its position as I see it, and what you're saying, is rather than try to reinforce and support and get behind these marijuana issues, the agency has taken a position that it wants to cower away from the political battles and stay quiet and not support anything.
I would say the agency's neutral. That's
Well-
what I'm, that's
Well,
the message.
silence in a time of controversy is, all that's necessary for you to go is for the good men to do nothing.
But again, it's in the right arena. It's in the political arena.
It's not, it's a fee reduction.
Yeah.
We're not talking about a controversial aspect. We're talking about responsible management of a program and responsible service to our ultimate stakeholders. When, if by refusing to appropriately reduce the fee, it affects the stakeholders, the people this act was intended to protect and serve. And people,
Well said.
and people pay these fees out of their disability checks, and
Go without
and
food.
it's not a political issue. It's a responsible management. And when we see the cash balance go, several times the 6-month operating budget, then that's a sign of irresponsible financial management. And so that's what the issue is. Anyway, we need to move on. We have a report from Tom Burns about the rollout of the MMF program. And
Talk about the veterans yet? Are we gonna talk about that at all?
sorry. Okay. Does anybody have much of a discussion about that, or
About
motion?
what?
This
Okay.
veterans thing.
I have a clinic, I deal with people in different locations, Ben, the Dalles, and Portland. Ben's got money, the Dalles is of course, Portland's in between. I deal with patients every day who are approaching me and they don't have any money. They're broke, they don't have any money. And, they're, SSD. We haven't been able to get SSD after this. And these are people, a lot of them are in facilities. They can't even, they are in a facility and they can't pay the fees. And I wonder why, I mean, not that I don't love our veterans and everything, but I also see it as being a political thing. And not that I don't think the veterans should have it, but a lot of the veterans have a lot better off than the people I'm talking about, the people on SSD and SSDI. They just don't have any money at all. And I want to know, we've been trying to get SSD included for a long time, and although I want to include the veterans, I have a real hard time not including these other people as well. So, okay, that's what I had to say.
It sounds like it's a bigger issue. Can we table this until the afternoon?
Yes,
we
we
should.
Okay, great. Dr. Sexton, do you have a PowerPoint for your presentation? Okay. Would you be able to set her up while Tom Burns is giving his talk? Or? Okay, thank you, Tracy. All right, Tom, you're up.
That was the dialogue between ACMM and administration?
Yeah, and we'll also table the scheduling of the next meeting for the afternoon as well.
Well, I hope everybody was happy with what happened on Monday morning. I will tell you, I certainly was. The computer worked. The applications came in. They came in a controlled manner. They came in as we expected. We had about 290 some odd applications received. Almost 250 of those were in the first 30 minutes. They were running about 30 to 40 completed applications a minute right out of the box. So those of you who typed quickly, you got them in and you pushed the button as quickly as you could. The computer processed your applications. you've seen the numbers. I mean, I can give you the numbers if you want them about sort of the county breakdowns, but you know where they are. You know where the big counties are, so that's not important. I do think there is one thing that you all need to be aware of. I was frankly stunned at two things as we looked at the raw data. And understand this is a preliminary look. We have not been able to get a lot of, we don't have all the answers right now. Number one, I was surprised at how many people did not pay any attention to the school law. I cannot tell you, there were a significant number. It's not an insignificant number. I'm not saying it's 10% or anything like that, but there was a surprising number of people who, despite having a tool on there, and despite the messaging we put out, which is walk your neighborhood and learn what's around you, went ahead and submitted an application where they were clearly within the school boundary. Those dispensaries will obviously be denied, and I will have $500 to continue to support the program. I apologize for that, but that's the law. The second thing, that was a surprise to me is how many dispensaries didn't talk to their fellow dispensaries. And I get it. You're all in business, and you all hope to push the button first. But I would say that at this point in a preliminary look, that almost a third of the dispensaries bumped, up against another dispensary. What the actual outcome of that is going to be, we don't know, because if you consider I've got 3 dispensaries across a 1,100-foot area. If one plops in the middle, they wipe out the other 2. If the 2 plop in, they wipe out the 1, and I don't know the order in which they came in yet. So I can't answer specifically, but I will tell you that there are a lot of dispensaries who will not get it because of the 1,000-foot rule.
And it's still first come, first serve.
And it is still first come, first serve. Absolutely first come, first serve on that. The other thing is, as you know, we encourage people to waive the confidentiality provisions. About 2/3 of the dispensaries agreed to do that. We will honor that request and be posting the dispensaries as we approve them on, again, I don't know whether we'll do it once a day or wait once a week. Because we haven't even started the process really of looking at them yet. But we will be posting the dispensaries on the webpage who have agreed to waive the confidentiality. We're in the process of putting together a application or a tool that will allow you to enter a zip code and find out what dispensaries are within 5 miles of your zip code. So that if you are a patient who is traveling and wants and needs their medication and you don't know the Ashland area, you will get the addresses posted automatically for Ashland or whatever it is. The last thing I would comment is, as you all know, the legislature is almost completed with their work on 1531. I am not in the final discussions of that, but the version of the bill is out there. It is 1531C, and C calls for a 12-month moratorium effective May 1st, 14th of May. Let me rephrase that. That's not what I wanted to say. It authorizes cities and counties to impose a 12-month moratorium on within their jurisdiction on facilities beginning May 1st and running through May 15th. We spent some time working with the legislature because the law, as 3460 said, I have to, starting today, start approving applications. Which, if I approve your application in a city that doesn't, I don't mean to point to you, Cheryl, but in a city, and the city says you can't use that application, I've taken $4,000 from you and it's no good. So the legislature has agreed to allow you to look at this and request. There's a term of art that's not coming to me right now, but essentially come to me and say, I can't use this, would you please refund my money, and the whole amount, and we will revisit the whole discussion once the city ultimately ends the moratorium, or May 1st of 2015, in which case there'll probably be another mad run because I don't know what to do other than first come, first serve on that date for bumps. Sorry. So that's sort of the big high level. Please don't ask me whether I got your application. Please don't ask me whether you were going to get approved, because frankly I don't know the answer to that. But I will tell you that we are We are putting the applications together. You have until Monday, close of business on Monday, if you apply the following Monday, to get your paperwork postmarked. Don't miss that. We will not authorize extensions. We've had questions about fingerprints. They go to a different address in the paperwork. If you are uncomfortable, send both to both. You know, I mean, or if we get fingerprints, we will be sending them off to the background check unit, but it will slow the process down for the fingerprint checking, which means we'll have to put your application sort of on the back end. Again, you don't lose your space, but we won't get to work on that until later on. What else can I tell you? I anticipate it is late the week of the 17th that we will start issuing licenses. That's simply because, again, we don't have the paperwork in. We will get the paperwork, you know, it's coming in daily. We have to put those together with the application. The staff has to review that next week. We are going to meet with attorneys on early the week of the 17th, so that we make sure that we don't make a mistake. We've got everything done. If there is a question mark about how close the dispensary is, either to another dispensary or to a school, we will physically go out and visit that just to make sure that it's clear. We are not going to come knocking on your door to say, I want to see your security system, any of that stuff. That's all down the road when we do the formal inspection. I don't know. Questions?
Okay, the last one I reviewed on 1531 was 1531B-21. Is 1531?
I think the 21 reflects the C. 21 is C.
Oh, okay. Well,
Yeah.
it came up for me when I printed it off, B21. So does that still leave the option to for the moratorium as optional for counties?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. All right.
The county, the May 1st date was picked because counties have certain notice requirements and meeting requirements, all those kind of things. That gives them essentially the months of what's left of March and April to take any action they want to take action. If they do not take action by May 1st, they can't. They don't meet provisions of 1531, and so I suspect that dispensaries could be in those jurisdictions that didn't take an action.
And they aren't required to fulfill the full amount of time on the moratorium. If they would just want to cover 3 months to see what's going on everywhere else, then they can go ahead and start allowing facilities in their area. Okay.
Absolutely. And again, I mean, I say correct because I read the law the same way.
Okay.
We are not, as a health authority, involved in local government. That's going to be between the dispensaries and local government, but I read it the same way you do.
Okay.
Brian and then Ben.
Oh, Brian.
Right, and I gotta thank you very much for responding to my question. With the email the other week, 2 weeks ago. Very much. Okay, whatever, thank you.
Well, because then everybody else is going to know why I haven't responded to their email. We do try. I mean, I do appreciate, I know, just before Brian, if I could, I do appreciate, we've asked you to submit questions through the MedMJ mailbox. We try to clean that out daily. Sometimes it's a little later. I do appreciate that because we are just inundated, as you may well guess. So I'm happy to have responded, and if I accidentally put my name in there, it was an accident. Please don't call.
I won't. But that misspoken on my part aside, in terms of the zoning, okay, I was under the impression that one could go on the web and print out what's on the web of a local government about what their zoning is in the area and send it off. Am I mistaken?
That's when we put this, and Todd, you sat on the committee with us, local government said, yes, that is easily accessible data.
Because someone who seems to have otherwise been in the know seems to have disagreed with me considerably, saying, oh no, I have to go down to the city and I have to get something approved by the city.
No. The city does not have to approve anything. You go to the city and say, I am located at 527 West Main. Will you please tell me what the zoning is, and put that on some document? You can request that, or you can go on the email or the web or whatever it is. I'm told that Multnomah County maps, Portland maps, when you put an address in, it actually pops up with what the zoning is for
that. A lot of them do.
Okay, do they? Okay, I live in
that's what I feel is sufficient.
Yeah.
Perhaps what Brian's referring to, maybe, I know I had one client who said their county wouldn't give, their planning department wouldn't give them that map unless they let them know who they are, where their dispensary is located, and this is just a basic.
I was very glad you sent him to me because I wanted to get that straightened out.
So
I mean, again, this is there, but I cannot imagine, it's a public document, I cannot imagine how local governments can say that. And again, we're not asking them for approval, we're not doing anything else, we just don't know. I don't know what's zoned over there. I don't have the I mean, I could take the time and delay everybody while I come and find out that, but that's what we're hoping.
No, it makes sense.
Yeah.
If you can just take a web page and it doesn't
Yeah.
need to be stamped by the
Right.
city or
No,
something.
no.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm glad that that's the way I was right on that. Yeah, thank you very much.
Ben, and then I.
So, mine's a two-part question, so two different questions, but I'll disclose that out the gate, not even two-part, I'm just gonna be ridiculous here. So no, piece number one was that I just observed in with the schools that you addressed, the draft that came out after the legal department got to do its review and all that, the final piece seemed to be very open about what would qualify as, like the way it was worded, you can even have someone tutoring in the house to qualify. I mean, basically, it seems like you have to check the final piece
I'll be happy to
because it's very vague, and so that had a high concern for me. Obviously, it's a very expensive process to cite, set up a facility. So, yeah, homeschools definitely. And so with that said, I would just say that really review that because I think that's of a great concern.
Ben, I will, and be happy to do that. And I will tell you how we are going to implement it. And you know, if someone wants to sue me, that's fine. I will tell you what the intent of the rules committee was and the rules process was. It has to be a school, it has to be a physically located school that is teaching primary and secondary grades, or a career school that teaches primary and secondary grades.
And secondary.
Primary and secondary.
Or not or.
grades.
And or.
Or because there are a number of schools that are primary or secondary or both.
Both. Yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah, sorry, just clarification.
Yeah, the issue we run into, and that applies to both public and private schools. Now, we've run into a number of places where someone has come to us and said, there is a location where students can go and use computer learning, sit down at terminals. We've looked at that and come to the conclusion that's not a school.
Library.
That's a library, for lack of a term, it's a library, but they pose them as, we're helping students, but we had another case where there was somebody who held themselves out of school but had no teaching credential. They had another profession, they were using the school for a number of other purposes, besides just providing reading, writing, arithmetic. We said that's not a school. The only gray area that we came to was, what is a daycare center that offers kindergarten? And we said, if they offer, if it's not kindergarten first, it's not a school. They have to be kindergarten and up, or first and up. But if it's preschool through kindergarten, it's not a school. Homeschools don't qualify. In fact, to the parents that I'm homeschooling my students does not qualify.
Okay, great. And then the final on that is just noticing on the search tool that is provided, that actually isn't reflective of your
That is
state.
correct.
And so that's, and some of them, even like with a public school, when you look at the parameters versus actually doing a measuring tool, they've sort of taken liberties at the and I know it's from the edge of the property,
Right.
the edge of the property, I'm very aware of that, but even then, using some just GIS technology, just basically real estate technology lets you search. They're pushing the envelope like 200 feet or so in most
No, they
cases.
shouldn't be. They shouldn't be.
No,
And
I know.
Again, that's why we made it very
Just
clear.
observations,
That's
yeah,
why we
yeah.
made it very clear. This is a tool for you to look at,
but
not a final decision tool.
Gotcha. And you don't rely on that final decision.
Right.
It's always
If
perfect.
it's in the gray area, we're going to
Thank
be
you.
out with it. You may see us rolling down the street.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much. And so the follow-up, a separate question was to that is one, the piece I noticed was that after the Rules Advisory Committee, and I know it's not disbanded yet because there's the final adoption, but I've got to express this grave concerns with the 5 people like we did the first time we spoke when you came about them being law enforcement of some nature, because what's happened is those same people have come out vehemently against it publicly, and frankly, it seems inappropriate if not unethical. I haven't called over an ethics commission, but I gotta say, if you consider keeping it open, or you do in the final, I would strongly request, as I did the first time before it was formed, that you consider replacing. It's just, inappropriate is a very nice thing to say.
Your point is well taken, and I'm acutely aware of the issue.
Are you considering taking any actions?
We are not, if you are,
Will you have the same rules advisory committee doing the final?
actually technically there is no rules advisory committee for final approval. The rules advisory committee
so
is kind of down here important.
Oh, so
The
it's
question
disbanded.
you want to ask is, when we do the next rules
Yes.
advisory committee, will they be on it? And the answer is no.
Yeah.
There will be law enforcement, I mean, don't get me wrong, there will be law enforcement. But those, because law enforcement needs to be at this table. But those
yeah.
people who have.
But the percentage makeup, will it still be 5 of them be law enforcement?
I didn't think it was that. I thought it was
It's 5, yeah.
City,
Oh, yeah.
county, city, sheriff, police, and DA.
Oh,
There
and
were
then
six-
Alan,
there were six out
Andy
of
Olson, he
Well, he was a member
represents,
of the legislature.
but he represents state trooper interests primarily.
Yeah.
So does
And
Kroger.
and Senator Przansky, who's,
Very good.
a prosecutor.
Kroger Olson.
Yeah.
I-
But three of the law enforcements are unwavering opponents who have campaigned fiercely in the legislature and in their own
And they will
communities
be at the
against this.
And
They
they were,
will be at the table.
Really?
Please
The
understand-
unwavering opponents?
Please understand that. We want this to work. We want everybody to be at the table. If they're at the table, while they can poke holes at us, it is to our advantage to have them at the table.
Not
Even
true
if
at
they're
all.
giving advice with intentions to,
Undermine.
that are contrary to the
They
intent
will
of
be
the
at the
statute.
table.
It's like having Carrie Nation
I
on
mean,
the
there are law
Yeah.
enforcement officers
just-
who
it's not-
who are reasonable and who support, the law
The law.
and
I
the
understand you. I understand you.
Are you
There
saying
is
those
no other
same
agency in
people
Oregon.
I did not say that.
But are you
I
saying
said
that-
law enforcement will be at the
Yeah, they
table.
should.
Yeah, we're happy to have them at the
Yeah,
table.
yeah,
But if they're unwavering opponents of the law that they're advising on the rules of, that's
From before even.
that's problematic. If we could find someone who, anyway, we have to move on to.
Real quickly, I would like to have as many law enforcement on the next rules advisory committee for this section of the healthcare programs as sits in on every other rules advisory committee for all the other healthcare programs. How many sit in on other
Very
healthcare
nice.
programs?
I don't know. I hear your concern.
Thank you.
And I just said the final thing before we move on to our next item. And speaking of the composition, it would be great to have more women on the,
Thank you.
more gender
Thank you
equality,
much.
as well as we need at least one medical professional and at least one patient representative who will be depending on the dispensaries. They're the ultimate stakeholders, and
I do want to, if I may, Mr. Chair, I don't mean to contradict what Dave said, but he works in public health and I work in the director's office. And I do need to make it clear, we as a health agency recognize that we are a health agency when we ask questions about marijuana. And we are in the process of trying to find answers to those questions. We will not shut down. We will be there to respond to people who have questions and concerns about marijuana and about the impact of both the dispensary program, the card program, and the legalization. It will be a straight up, here's what we know at this time type answer. So Dave, you
said it better.
Maybe that's because I'm the politician.
That's all right.
But
Thank
I
you.
just wanted,
Thank you.
the second thing I want to say is, I would strongly, let me rephrase that, I would like to work with representatives of this committee to re-examine the entire OMMP program. I think it's time to have a conversation about what is in the law around OMMP, how that law is being used to sometimes help and sometimes hurt the program, and to dovetail that law with the dispensary program. It's clear to me that the two can't function independently. The two laws have some conflicts, most of it having to do with confidentiality, and we need to get together. And so I'm telling you that we as an agency will be convening a work group around that and try and find a way to address, to clean up wrong term, to improve the OMMP law and the dispensary law so they work better together.
There's only one way to do that, and you're gonna be resentful to this. Only one way to do that is to make us the rules committee. We are the longest standing statutory advisory committee in this area where the legislature created us. And for the decade or so we've been in existence, we've been told we listen to you and we've not been listened to. And if you're serious about what you just said, honestly and completely, I mean it sincerely, the only way to really live up to what you just said is to make us the rules committee. We are the stakeholders. We know this stuff better than anyone. We've got doctors, we've even got a lawyer on the committee, we've got dispensary people, we've got business people. We are the rules committee. Anything short of us being the rules committee is just us being once again silent.
Brian, I appreciate that.
That's my
I will remind you that there are no law enforcement in this.
And keep in mind, and I wrote Dr. Goldberg this, and once I wrote it to him, he stopped talking about it. Because there's something in law called the organic statute. A rule can only have the authority the statute gives us. To have somebody contrary to the statute on a rules committee violates the principle of the organic statute premise. So to have law enforcement on this committee in order to undermine the Oregon medical marijuana program is contrary to the purpose of the statute, which is why when the legislature created this committee, it didn't say and have law enforcement on it. The legislature created this committee. We didn't create ourselves.
I've read the statute, Brian. I understand what the statute says. I am telling you that I encourage your participation.
You know me, I was trying to get
So you're saying if we
participation
get
first
law
place.
enforcement member as a member, would you consider doing that?
What I'm looking for is I'm looking for active participation from this group. Whether it is all of you or a subset of you will depend on how big a working group has to be.
What do you mean by active?
I find that a group that is much bigger than 10 or 12 is not a functional group to have a good dialogue. There are, I don't know how many of you around the table here now. You've got to look beyond your community and look outside the community and bring people in. I will tell you that I am the perfect example of that. If you asked me what my thoughts of this program was 6 months ago, it would have not been positive. And I was imposed on you, but I will tell you there are a lot of other people like me out there who you need to expand the circle and talk outside, not inside. I don't know what the makeup of this is going to be. I'm just telling you that we as an agency are going to begin down this path, and we'll create an agency work group, and we'll encourage your participation. Whether there are rules, whether there's law changes that come out of that work group is a second conversation. But right now we are going to put a work group in place to try and examine the program to make it a better program in the future.
Very quick comment, then we
I
have to move
will.
on.
The one thing that became, that is just becoming more and more evident, not that it was ever hidden, is I watched the hearings all week on 1531. Tuesday, a grand total of one, if memory serves me right, got up and spoke to the issue of patients being served by MMFs with concern and caution. Yesterday, there were a grand total of 2 out of 60 lawmakers. So when will the programs be designed around with consideration of the patients who these programs are supposed to serve without special interest, lobbyists, and law enforcement interfering in this healthcare program? That's what I want to know. Well, you don't need to answer me now, but this is an issue. And it's becoming more and more of an issue of discrimination and bigotry because we are treated as the other. We aren't even publicly recognized as a part of this state's health care program.
Okay, thank you, Tom, and thank you for the technical success.
Thank you.
And there will always be a hot seat for you.
I have never shied away from anything. I'm perfectly willing to be convinced.
Thank you.
Okay, now we're gonna I think we'll go until 10 after 12, if that's okay with everybody. We're running a good bit late here, and I'll introduce our guest speaker, Dr. Michelle Sexton, one of the lead editors of the American Herbal Pharmaceutical Cannabis Monograph. And ooh, Tom just left.
Whoa.
I spent so much time talking to this committee, and mostly the Rules Advisory Committee, about this technical document that's so important to not only it's a technical reference for botanists, horticulturists, and medical professionals, but as a tool, as a reference for regulation. And it came into play with our own rules for the dispensaries. We didn't adopt all of the American Herbal Pharmacopeia's references, but we did adopt the fungal contaminant limits. Unfortunately, there was an error in our rules that required testing for aerobic bacteria for mildew, even though they're in completely different taxonomic kingdoms. But anyway, Dr. Michelle Sexton, thank you for coming down. The floor is yours.
So you want to go till 10 after 12? Is it what you
10 after 12, yeah.
Okay, I think that'll work well. I have 30 slides. So thanks to Todd for inviting me to come and represent this document. You should have all gotten a handout on how to order it. It can be ordered online as well. So I just have to say I'm really ignorant of the Oregon law. I've lived in Washington for 9 years, and I'm in California now, but mostly work in Washington. And I got involved in this process of writing the Pharmacopoeia monograph a few years ago. Roy Upton, who is the executive director, finally decided to take on cannabis as a topic of a monograph. And I can't even remember now, I had known Roy since 1991, and he got in touch with me. And so I started helping him, and it's been a huge volunteer effort by everyone who's contributed. And the final push really came when the state of Washington passed Initiative 502 to regulate and license adult use in all aspects of growing and dispensing cannabis. And early on got contacted by the Liquor Control Board, because they were just like, they had to learn all about this, and what do we do? Where do we go? What do we do? So I put him in touch with Roy early on, and Washington ended up just adopting the entire monograph for the quality control of products to be distributed through I-502. So that really sort of put us on the hot plate to get it out and get it produced, which was a good thing, because it can drag on when you've got a lot of volunteerism going on. So Todd just asked me to come and tell you about it. So first I just wanted to tell you a bit about myself. I grew up in West Texas, and I don't know how, but I got very interested in natural health. I was raised in a conventional community with my granddad as a medical doctor, and around age 17 I just got really interested in natural foods, and then that led me into natural medicine, the use of herbs. And so this is a self-portrait. That what my friend Sunil Agarwal pointed out is this book on my bedside reading table, which was Back to Eden by Jethro Kloss. And so I was really interested in plant medicine from the time I was pretty young, and had no clue. I was very curious about what made a plant medicine, because I didn't know what chemistry was. I didn't know anything. Ended up getting married, raising 5 kids, went back to school at age 40 to get a horticulture degree because I wanted to grow medicinal herbs, and got interested in phytochemistry and chemistry, and learned analytical chemistry and started investigating active ingredients in plants. Ended up going to Bastyr University to get my naturopath medical degree. I literally fell into a research project at the University of Washington with Dr. Matthew Stella, who he's really one of the internationally known endocannabinoid scientists. He's a biologist and a pharmacologist. Spent 6 years in his lab really getting a good handle on the pharmacology of the cannabinoid system and cannabinoid interaction. And as I was finishing my postdoc, trying to think what would I do next, I decided I would open an analytical
I wanted to take it back to the whole plant, and I was very fascinated with this movement of people really turning to cannabis for medicine and learn more about it, share what I knew, learn from the patients. And in the process, got involved with a lot of different things. I'm on the board for American Safe Access Foundation, who really raised the monies for the monograph. Steph Scherer and I had talked, you know, about this adoption by the monograph, by the pharmacopoeia, that cannabis is a botanical medicine. It's a plant, it's an herb, and this is where it belongs. It doesn't belong in the U.S. pharmacopoeia with other drugs. And so it was a really exciting thing. She got the American Herbal Products Association as well to form a cannabis committee, and so that's been made of people in the industry and who have come out with 4 sets of recommendations on good manufacturing, good growing practices, laboratory, and dispensing. So if you guys don't know about the AHPA, you should look up that. I think you can download all of those documents, and those are also meant to be as guides for regulators. But in the absence of regulation taking place, they're meant to be a guide for you guys to self-regulate. And, you know, that's, I don't understand why it's a difficult concept, but I can't seem to get anybody in California, you know, that's unregulated in California, but when you go and try to get a local group, you know, you probably know how it is. It's like herding cats, you know. So everybody wants to do it themselves. They want to say that it's the right way. And this was done by a group of industry people. So, you know, you can agree or disagree with it, but it's the starting place at least, so it's been done. So the Pharmacopoeia and the Herbal Products Association often work sort of hand in hand, although they're different organizations. It can be a little confusing. So this is the monograph. I just showed you the cover, and I really feel highly honored that Roy has put me on the cover, because apparently I'm the first non-PhD that he has ever put on the cover of a monograph. And it's really just a highlight of my life and my career to have been able to work with Roy. He's an amazing person. He's an amazing herbalist. I'm sorry you didn't get to hear from him today. He's down at a product convention in Anaheim. So, you know, here's a cartoon. The Food and Drug Administration is really cracking down. We have to list all the ingredients in our potions. And, you know, there's a lot of resistance to that. And there's been a lot of resistance from the entire herbal products industry, you know, and it's taken really small, slow steps by the FDA through DSHEA, you know, to get that entire industry up to some standards. And honestly, what's been adopted from here into Washington is much more stringent than any other herb on the market. And it's a huge problem with herbs in general on the shelves, with contamination, adulteration, and really just misrepresentation of what's in a capsule or in a box. And so the most that has to be done right now is that the producer processors have to have some sort of certificate saying that this plant is what it says it is. But there's no chemical analysis involved, nothing like that. And so it's worried me a little bit that cannabis has, you know, suddenly being subjected to much higher scrutiny, because it worries me for the rest of the plant kingdom and the rest of the herbs, and that we wind up like Europe, where they're behind the counter and we can't treat ourselves and we lose the people's medicine. But this is what's happening because of the federal status and the stigma of cannabis and all that. So I think the resistance to change is coming from a black market, you know, out into the open and into the light and into the light. That, you know, everybody's been able to do it the way they wanted to do it, with no scrutiny, you know, nobody judging quality, anything. And then to suddenly be told, you know, there's a lot of resistance to that. And I tried to get people in Washington to self-regulate, and there was so much resistance, and, you know, now it's happening through the government. So you sort of have an option. You can wait until the government decides to do it, or you can self-regulate and show them how it's done. So that's sort of the purpose of doing all of this. So DSHEA is the Dietary Supplement Health Education Act, and good manufacturing processes just basically are that ingredients must be accurately declared. You have to have some sort of proof of identity. Again, this isn't on the part of the growers, but the people who are putting it in a box and packaging it must show this. And you have to use the proper nomenclature. It must be free of pathogens. You have to show proof of purity, documentation of manufacturing processes, and then new probably are sort of aware about claims on supplements that the FDA hasn't approved that you can't make claims. And then as far as the testing requirement for most herbal products, it just says you have to use an appropriate scientifically valid method. And this is different from just a validated method. And I'm not going to really go into that, but I'll talk a little bit more about it when we come to the analytical testing part. So they're just recommending that you don't invent some test to say that it is what it says it is. You use a test that's already recognized within a community as being a valid test. And then, you know, there's a bunch of scientifically valid methods out there through different organizations. So often the first question I get is, what is a monograph? And if you're not familiar with a monograph, here's a copy, one from Dioscorides, which is a very old Greek medical text. And so from the earliest written records of medical texts, and plants were the medicine of the time, it was just a detailed description of plants. And so a monograph just means one topic. It's a document, and it's all on one topic, which is usually one plant. And it's sort of a prescribed set, and this table of contents from the monograph basically tells you the outline, and any monograph will pretty much follow this same outline. And so the purpose of nomenclature and identification goes back to when people used to go out and wildcraft herbs, and you had to be able to accurately identify what you were looking for. And because there are some plants, if you get the wrong one, it could actually kill you. So it goes from just visually identifying it to all the botanical characteristics to microscopic identification, because there's some that look so identical that you can't tell unless you do a slice of the root and look under a microscope to differentiate it from a poisonous plant. And so cannabis doesn't really have that problem. But that's the purpose in a monograph, for having all of that in there. And then Roy went to great lengths for people to go out and get advice from the industry on all of these things about sourcing, cultivation, harvest, drying, packaging, storage, specific to cannabis. And so it's just all described here. Because something as simple as drying it and drying it properly can mean the difference between your microbial load or your fungal count. And so somebody needed to say, how do you do it right? And then we go into all the constituents of the plant. We know quite a lot about all the constituents of cannabis. And then how do you analyze for those constituents? And so what we've published in the monograph are methods, gas chromatography, liquid chromatography for basically cannabinoid profile, and that's all we've included at this point, because obviously THC is the one sort of standout compound that it's really useful to know how potent something is, especially for new patients. And then also we go into pesticides, pesticide limits, and anyway, we'll get on to all of that. So I just wanted to, somebody asked me yesterday, who are the authors? And so I did put the authors in here, and really they're people from all over the world who have, spent a good portion of their careers really focusing on cannabis. And so it comes from leading experts all over the world in different fields, and they're asked to volunteer their time to write a section, or maybe they've already written something and we take that document and edit it for the monograph and repurpose it. And then after that's done, there's reviewers who go back through every section and make sure it's accurate or that nothing has been missed. And then the final reviewers are, they're really the world leading experts. I wouldn't say Michael Steenhout is a world leading expert. He's from the Liquor Control Board, but he was scrutinizing it for regulatory purposes in Washington. So why do we need a cannabis monograph? Well, obviously, and you guys were just talking about this, the number of people that are turning to cannabis as a medicine because they're finding it really useful, they're finding it more tolerable than other medications, they find that it improves their quality of life. And I don't know what it's like here, but I know for a patient in Seattle walking in a dispensary who's maybe a naive user, I can only imagine how intimidating it might be to walk into one of those shops. And it's visually overwhelming. And even if you were only just trying to choose which flower you wanted, but you know, it's not limited to flowers. There's drinks and teas and sauces and frozen products, and it can go on and on. So, you know, the consumer needs to be better prepared as well. So, you know, there has been no quality control, and it really needs to be established, you know, not only for consumer safety, but for industry professionalism, and also just for efficacy. As a naturopath, I can recommend cannabis in Washington, and so I've worked with a lot of patients, and the dose is not the same for everyone, and that's not a topic I'm going to get into here. And then, like we already stated, there just needs to be really good information on proper manufacturing, growing, handling, and all of that, for not only for the flower, but associated products. And so we need to be able to assess the integrity of the vendors themselves and who's dispensing. So are they making their own products, or are they brokering it? If they're brokering it, they may not have a clue about how it's made, the cleanliness of the kitchen that it's made in, et cetera, et cetera. Do they follow any quality control guidelines at all? You know, are there protocols that they follow when making products? And who's in charge of the quality control of the plant material? How do they know it's, with cannabis it's not so much a problem of the right material because it's so visually striking and the smell and all, but you know, you can see on microscopic inspection that it might not be of good quality. And I mean, I know what happens is people get a mite infection, and so they can't sell it in the dispensary, so what do? They make an extract with it. You know, and then does anybody scrutinize that extract? Was it thoroughly strained? Did it have fungal infection? Could there be, you know, fungal associated toxins that are now concentrated with the cannabis product? So the role of the monograph is to provide a peer-reviewed, authoritative body of knowledge. And why not? While the people who wrote this monograph may not be your peers, it really was reviewed. I mean, I hope you would think I'm a peer of yours on the plant level, and so there were others, you know, who were very interested in the whole plant as a medicine who reviewed this document. So I just wanted to show you a bit of what's inside if you haven't seen it. So just, you know, really beautiful photographs, descriptions of the botany. This monograph really focuses on the flower, so whenever Roy does a monograph, it's for a single plant part. If at some point there was a lot of interest in the root of cannabis, we can do a monograph on the root of cannabis. So, and then we go through all the constituents. We have, you know, the chemical structure of the cannabinoids and the associated terpenoids. So you can see the chemical structure. They're described a little bit from the literature about what if any utility there might be for these compounds in isolation. And then the analytical standards. So the elements of quality assurance and quality control are included in the document. So there's key information on cultivation, harvest, drying, storage, and processing. So this is really good, you know, not only for people who may have already been growing, you might learn something new, but anybody new who wants to come into this. So for instance, when it's completely dried, if it's completely dried, it should only be about 10% moisture. You know, so if you're not measuring moisture content, you've got people paying for water. And you know, this is a really wet climate up here, so you're probably familiar with what happens then. There's a little bit of clarification about misconceptions about different species. We don't really go into varieties here. There's been a lot of disagreement in the scientific community whether there are 2 main species, are there 3 species, are there 4 species? And there's, you know, a couple of leading researchers who have different opinions on that, and we just sort of present it unbiasedly. How do you assess the quality of the crude plant material? And establishing the criteria for what's acceptable for foreign matter in the flower, the moisture content, microbiological burden, pesticide residue, and residual solvents in extractions. So some of that is visual, and some of it is not. You know, some of it requires chemical detection methods. And you know, one thing that's one of the reasons that cannabis fell out of disrepute as a medicine was because it was so unpredictable. And, you know, I'm talking about up until the 1930s or 1940s, 47 when it was removed from the U.S. Pharmacopoeia. The active substance hadn't been identified yet. It was 1964 when Raphael Mechoulam identified THC. Because it's this lipophilic compound, they just didn't have advanced methods for working with a fat-soluble compound like that. And so they just called it a red oil, and I think they kind of judged it by the color. Many of the tests were carried out on dogs to determine potency. And they even went so far as to say rat terriers were really good at doing these tests. It's described in great length in the 1918 Pharmacopoeia about how to carry out a physiologic test on a dog to determine potency. So, you know, it was hard for a doctor to use it and prescribe it if he wasn't sure, if he told the patient to take 1 grain, but this was a more potent batch. And then, you know, if the patient has a miserable experience, like maybe all of you have known somebody that happened to. I certainly have. So the analytical testing is, you know, just the ability to actually quantify what is there. And to do that, you know, analytical chemistry is not a trivial matter. And I know, you know, what's happened in Washington, and I don't know about here if there's any laboratories. Certainly in California, although it's gotten much more sophisticated in California, that people have just opened up shop after going to a weekend training course and gotten a small portable unit, some of them operating out of vehicles. And it's really difficult to say that you can get an accurate quantitative result if you don't really have training in how to do that and know all of the elements in ensuring that you have an accurate number to give back to somebody. You can probably get in a ballpark. But what really bothers me is the labs are reporting accuracy to 2 decimal points. And that's something we wrote into the Washington standards, that it has to be reported in a range. Because if you run the same sample 3 times, your accuracy is not that great. It's going to be probably within a range 1% either side of what you get. So I think that's a much more reasonable way to label these products, is within a range. And that's, you know, it's a part of consumer safety because, you know, while it's rare, there's starting to be some reports come out. You get maybe an older person or somebody who's on an antihypertensive drug and they're naive to cannabis. Maybe they used it back in the 70s when the average THC content was 4 or 5%. They have no clue that now it's 15 to 20% THC. They think they can smoke an entire joint. Or even if they take 1 hit, they're getting such a huge dose of THC and their blood vessels dilate and the blood pressure drops. I think there's a report of somebody passing out, hitting their head and dying from the head injury in California. After, I don't know if it was a dabber or, you know, or what the situation was, but somebody was telling me this yesterday. But I had a friend in Texas who had this experience after drinking some alcohol, was going to a concert, thought, oh, that'll be fun to get stoned, and passed out and had to call an ambulance after inhaling. So, you know, it's a public safety and a public health concern, honestly. To know what's in these products. Another good reason for doing analytical testing or even mandating it is for tracking potency trends. And this is data from California, and you can see from 96 to 2008, panel A is the THC content. So the average in 1996, it was a range, but it was about 5% average THC. And then this is 2008, it's doubled, but you can see, you know, some of them reported much higher. So it's pretty well accepted that the average THC content of particularly indoor cultivated cannabis is probably around 15% now. When they first started measuring it at the University of Mississippi in the early 70s, plants from around the world averaged 4%. So this is not the same plant. It's not the same plant. The historical data tells us about, number one. And it's not the same plant from the 70s even. So the selection of mutants that are producing high THC and indoor growing under, you know, intense lighting, which boosts the levels even higher, have changed this plant. And we've lost biodiversity as a result. You know, when it grew in the wild, it was an open field. You probably had a plant right here that might have been 15-20%, and this one over here was a CBD-rich variety. And the plant probably more commonly expressed both THCA synthase and CBDA synthase. But what this is showing that as the THC went up, the CBD levels went way down. And this to me says loss of biodiversity. So what we really need for medical use, I think, is, you know, a consistent product. And this goes for echinacea, this goes for chamomile, you know, it goes for anything really. But we don't require testing any of those products. But, you know, this one is a little bit different because THC is a little trickier of a chemical and has such a powerful action. So this is I thought this was funny. I'll read it to you because it's so funny. This was from like a physical therapy journal from like 1906. This is both a pleasant and efficient remedy for cholera morbus, colic, neuralgia, spasmodic pains. It is an antispasmodic and anodyne. No physician's case should be without it. It is one of the most available of emergency remedies. The nature of its ingredients and its liquid form make its action almost instantaneous. Relief is so prompt that it satisfies both physician and patient. It is concentrated. It covers a very large list of painful conditions and particularly agreeable to taste and gives prompt results. You can see it has morphine, fluid Indian cannabis, hydrocyanic acid, chloroform, peppermint. I guess the peppermint and the capsicum made it taste good. I don't know. Yeah, spicy. Who knows how much THC, you know, but from batch to batch, I'm sure it was inconsistent. Who knows where they were getting the Indian hemp from, you know? And we don't really know how exactly they were extracting it at that time either. And so, you know, here we are today, and, you know, this is labeled as milligrams of THC per teaspoon. So, you know, with the advent of analytical methods and isolation of THC and the ability to get the chemical standards, we can label it now.
Well, and the advances that it makes allows the physicians to begin to actually make a recommendation on how much or what they accept we should use.
Yeah, that's what I found
and
really
that's the huge
useful.
part.
Yeah.
And then we begin to treat it as medicine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you know, that's an interesting thing you bring up because, you know, another part of, I think, coming out of the dark is that, you know, the knowledge has been held by people using it and the herbalists and the people who have been growing it. And I think there's a little bit of reluctance to give that authority over to the doctors. And of course, the doctors have been really reluctant to, you know, try to become authoritative, to have any authoritative knowledge about it. So I think as time goes on, you know, we'll start to bridge those gaps, and that's what I spend a lot of time doing is educating healthcare providers about, because most of them really just don't know how to talk to a patient about it, or they have absolutely no clue to how to tell them, you know, how to use it, how much to use, what to go in, what variety to ask for, any of those things when they walk into a dispensary. So, you know, there's a lot of this woo-woo and gray area, so the more we can demystify it, I think everyone will benefit, especially patients. So, you know, what has to happen for an analytical method to be verified is a process called validation. And so this is just a quote from the monograph. Dispensaries should maintain strict quality control practices to ensure purity and quality of their material by contracting for testing with independent labs that apply independently verified testing methodologies and transparent testing. So an independent lab, because you know, if you analyze your own product, you could decide to change the numbers, obviously. You want a third party, so you get an unbiased result. And then the people performing those methods, again, that you need to know that they're using a method that works and is true and is accurate and reproducible. So these are all of the elements of a validated method. And so this can happen on a variety of levels. The AOAC does it. It costs a tremendous amount of money, but they have 10 independent laboratories do the same process so they can verify that they get the same result. And you know, as you can imagine, this is very problematic for cannabis. And in fact, we could not get it done for this monograph because cannabis is a Schedule I material. So if you wanted to go to a lab that has a Schedule I license, they specifically can't analyze any cannabis unless it comes from another Schedule I provider. So that means they could only analyze cannabis that comes from NIDA, or grown at the University of Mississippi, or they'll lose their Schedule I license. And then if there's laboratories out there doing there's other botanical laboratories that don't have a Schedule I license, but they didn't want cannabis in their facility. And then we didn't really want to contract with any of the cannabis laboratories because they didn't really have the scientific qualifications to do it. So we ended up not being able to take it through a validation process. Well, actually, we did try to take it through a process, and the method failed. We don't know if it was the method that failed, if it was the laboratory that failed, but across the board, it didn't work. So the methods in here have been validated in the literature only. And what Washington adopted was that if you use a method in here, you're good to go, but that still means you have to show all of this data in your own laboratory. You can't just say, I'm using this method, I'm good. You have to show that you can actually use the method and that you can reproduce the same result over different days and that you get the same answer and that you don't report something that's below or above what your standard curve says and a whole bunch of different technical elements.
Can you speak on the ability of testing facilities in Washington to obtain appropriate reference standards without a license from the DEA?
So those reference standards are available, and several different companies have them, although it's not all of them, but all we're requiring in Washington is THC. And so a company who sells standards can get a waiver from the DEA to sell those standards at 1 milligram per milliliter or less. And you don't need it any more concentrated than that for analytical chemistry. So otherwise, to get anything of higher strength, you have to have a Schedule I license.
That's what I mean. 1 mg per ml. Sample
Yeah, 1 mg per ml is plenty. And we hope that that'll change going forward. I mean, you can get some of the other standards. I think CBD acid is still not available as far as Sigma has it now. And then so that's I won't belabor the technical stuff, but there's a lot of technical aspects to the analytical piece. So there it is. So how do you use the monograph if you're a regulator or you're a group and you want to self-regulate? And Roy likes to say you use it all la carte. You don't have to say you don't have to adopt everything in there. You can pick and choose. So you can use any method as a lab. You just have to cross-validate it against the method that the monograph says is a working method. It's a validated method. And that the monograph, this is a starting place, and we think it'll probably evolve over time. The state of Washington has requested funding to do the validations properly. And not only to do validations, but when you do a validation for a method, say you're going to do plant extraction, that's a pretty simple extraction, but what if it's a brownie? Then you've got to do what's called a matrix extension, and you've got to validate the method for that matrix. So, and there's so many different matrices out there. There's, baked goods, there's gummy candies, there's hard candies, there's sodas, so this is a sticky business.
How many labs have achieved this in Washington?
The process has just started. So they just formally announced the certification process, and they hired somebody to do the certification. as of last week, when I talked to Mike Steamhouse, I don't think any of the labs have yet applied for certification. And it's probably because they're so overwhelmed by the checklist, and it doesn't surprise me that they can't meet the standard. So it'll be interesting to see who actually applies and makes it and who loses. There's, of course, California labs moving into the state, but they won't be able to get a provisional license because they haven't been in business in the state. So as of right now, there are 3 labs in the state. 2 of them, I think, might be able to get certified.
Are you familiar with any labs in Oregon who achieve that?
No, I don't know. I don't know anybody in Oregon.
So patients have to pay and have their stuff tested anyway, even though no one is certified.
In
Oregon.
In Oregon. Wow.
Isn't that crazy? Just nuts.
Well, you know, when I was trying to get people to test in Washington, nobody wanted to pay for the testing, and it was very hard. I thought it would be best to go to the growers because it's their baby, right? They babied it and grew it up and tried to keep it clean and nice and healthy. So I thought surely they would be interested in a certificate of analysis that they could take and say, look, I've got this great product. Look how clean it is, and here's the accurate potency of it. It's not just, yeah, it's good stuff, you know. And they weren't. They didn't even want to pay $100, you know, to be able to say they had a good product. And so the way it's gone is that individual dispensaries, they analyze some stuff and others they don't. And I don't know how they pick and choose what they want to analyze, you know. But and so, you know, I don't know if they just set a budget for how much stuff they think they can analyze that comes in. I'm not sure how they handle it. But, you know, in Washington, this is only adult use cannabis we're gonna know the quality of. The medical stuff, it's still gonna be a free-for-all, which is the frightening thing to me. Because that's what, you know, I've worked with these pediatric epilepsy patients, cancer patients. They're the ones at risk, especially, and they're the ones using concentrates. And so if you've concentrated mycotoxins that are neurotoxins, you're just harming the patient. And, you know, that was part of my interest was what's being dispensed and being called medicine, you know. And hopefully the state of Washington will step up and bring, you know, cannabis, medical cannabis, maybe even to a higher grade than the adult use cannabis. The only thing that's really not in here is a formal sampling plan. So, and that bothers me a little bit because it's going to be a 5-pound lot in Washington and a 7-ounce sample coming from that 5-pound lot. Who gets, a 7-gram sample, who gets to choose those 7 grams? Are they going to get to pick the biggest ones that are closest to the light, that have the baddest trichomes, you know? So I really don't know why it was left that way. But a sampling plan needs to be instituted, and there's tons of sampling plans out there for botanical standards. So we did, sorry about these things, I couldn't get an electronic copy that didn't have the watermarks on it. But here's the tables for microbial and fungal limits. So, you know, if you go at the United States standard level, it's a very conservative microbiological burden, and it's basically driven by sterility associated with drug products or isolated compounds, and so it really doesn't really work well to translate that over to plants because, you know, it's a plant. It's gonna have some microbes. We got microbes all throughout us, and the plants also that probably have symbiotic relationship with microbes. So if you want to subject a botanical material to that same sort of reduction treatment as a drug, you may end up actually harming the plant or the quality of the plant if they're heat sensitive, like we know cannabis is. So it's not always appropriate to subject a plant to those same limits. So basically, the limits that we chose to adopt, they were discussed, you know, we went around and around for probably a couple of months, along with the American Herbal Products Association. and people associated with the monograph about what are we going to put, what's reasonable, what do you guys see who are doing the testing, you know? And this is how we came up with the limits. So this here isn't saying these are pass-fail criteria. These are just, you could decide to accept them as pass-fail criteria. We're just saying these are limits that we think are reasonable. The same for solvents. We came up with basically the list of solvents that's used for any other botanical, and there's different classes. And so there's the class 2 solvents. So there are permissible daily exposure amounts that have been agreed upon by the International Conference on Harmonization. And so we chose those same limits. The class 3 solvents are typically the ones that are going to probably be used more often, just like, ethanol. So ethanol's right here. So all of these are 50 milligrams per day. And so if you're wondering how much alcohol you would have to drink to get 50 milligrams a day, it's not very much. Depends on the beer, but 2 or 3 beers and you got your 50 milligram limit of alcohol a day. But people taking a tincture, they're not going to reach that limit. So that's just this document, the standards of identity, analysis, and quality control. And typically the monograph comes out with the whole second piece, which is the therapeutic compendium. But because Washington State wanted this, and it was going to take so long to get it out, Roy decided to publish it in 2 volumes. So what we're working on now is getting the therapeutic compendium out. So I just thought I would tell you a bit about that. I hope that we have it out by summer. I think we're getting pretty close. So this is a review of the historical literature of the medical uses of the plant. So this is going to go back into the ancient history from Chinese medicine, Egyptian medicine, everything that basically we can find in the written records, and an overview. And then going up to from the time of Shaughnessy, brought it into Western medicine in the early use in the early 1900s, and then we take it forward all the way through today and what's in the published literature. So we have a really nice safety review, toxicology. We try to address maybe misperceptions or misconceptions. And then, the most tedious part is the comprehensive review of modern clinical trials. And, there's not a lot of them. And we've really tried to limit our review. We decided to leave all synthetic cannabinoids out of it, because there's a lot of studies with synthetics. And there's a lot, with just THC alone, like with Marinol. And then there's a few whole plant, like Sativex, you may be familiar with Sativex. Bedrocan is the medical flower in Holland, and one other German, Canador, I think, it's a capsule. And then there are a few studies on smoking cannabis as well. So we tried to highlight those. We do also go through animal data after we give the human data. So it'll be the most up-to-date, comprehensive clinical review. So these are the therapeutic topics. We give a really broad overview of the endocannabinoid system, pharmacokinetics. There's a section on addiction and dependence, use as a substitute for alcohol withdrawals, and then just all of these different areas get their own subject. And the way that we lay it out is we start with the lowest level, what's considered lowest level of clinical evidence, which would be like a case report or a series, a case series. You had 5 patients and blah, blah, blah. And then surveys, like surveys of patients with MS. How many of you use cannabis? How effective do you find it? What did patients say? Any kind of pilot studies that come from that. And then if randomized controlled trials have happened, then we review those. And the preclinical and animal data is after that. And so here's just an example of a conclusion. This was for Parkinson's disease. And then we have we try to present the clinical studies in a table format, so you can really just go and look at it and see what dose were they giving. You know, so this is what I see really useful for clinicians. So I just have a couple more slides. This is a Hopi medicine doctor. He says, I had a dream last night. The plants were crying because people have forgotten how to use them. So, you know, holding dear the traditional knowledge of the people's medicine, and this goes to extends out to our indigenous peoples, and they've held this knowledge for centuries, really. And, you know, to try to supplant it with modern scientific knowledge isn't always the best way. And so the monograph project will continue. Roy's published, I can't remember, cannabis is like number 37, and as he says, he's got 280 more to go. So if you buy the monograph, you support the American Herbal Pharmacopoeia and this work of sustaining plant medicine on the planet. And so just want to say thanks to Americans for Safe Access for initiating the project, Abatin Wellness and Abatis out of Canada financially contributed. Dr. Ethan Russo is one of we've worked closely with Roy, and that's been great, and thanks to Todd for inviting me. And if you have any questions, I work with the Center for the Study of Cannabis and Social Policy in Seattle, and that is my email address. And if you guys have any comments or questions, I think we have 2 minutes. You're speechless.
No one else is
Do you have a question?
You were speaking about some of the certification processes in Washington. Are you specifically trying to get labs ISO certified, or is that a special program that Washington is making for this industry?
Yeah, this is just a certification the Liquor Control Board developed because it was in rule that they had to certify laboratories.
Yeah.
So that certification is just within the state. If laboratories want to get ISO certified, that's additional on their part. It's not required at this time.
Having been involved with that, do you see a problem with people trying to get that ISO certification when they're unofficially holding controlled substances, even at the low dilution rates that you mentioned previously?
I don't know, but I know that Steve Hill is in the ISO process, so you could call and ask them.
So when I spoke with them maybe 6 months ago, and they told me that was not the case.
David told me this about 2 weeks ago.
That's wonderful to hear.
Yeah. So he would be a better person to ask. Did you have a question?
Sure.
Okay.
Actually,
why don't you go ahead?
I was just wondering what it would be the like the initial setup cost for a lab.
Well, if you look at it for Washington State, in the checklist, there's facilities requirements. So first, finding an adequate facility that has the appropriate ventilation, electric, and then you could probably lease the equipment and get it all put together, bootstrapping it $50,000 or $60,000.
Okay, because you were talking about people getting these small machines, setting them up in the back of their Volkswagen microbus and
Right.
going around
Yeah.
places. So.
Well, yeah, it's a quick and dirty way to make some money, but it's not the best analytical method to do it that way.
And Michelle, that would be most of the equipment costs, because
Yeah, I'm not talking
the
about
personnel
labor.
is
Yeah. That would just be getting the laboratory outfitted with the glassware and the equipment that you needed, and to really hire a competent person. I mean, in Washington, you have to have had adequate training, which means a bachelor's degree and X number of years of laboratory experience. You have to pay somebody $30,000 or $40,000 a year with that kind of the lowest level of experience.
Okay, one more question, Peke, and then we'll.
Okay, I have a healing oil I use on my chronic pain and with some other patients in their skin cancer. I talked to the university, since it has cannabis in it, they won't do nut testing.
No, they can't, because they probably have a DEA license, and they would get in a lot of trouble.
So can your organization help me out?
Well, then it would be crossing state lines, it would be a federal offense. Yeah, you really need a laboratory in Washington State, in Oregon, that who's a reputable lab that is following the appropriate. Is there a lab in Oregon? Does anybody? There is one?
Yes.
Where is it?
There's We have a couple in Portland, one in
Woodstock.
Bend, a couple in Eugene starting
Oh,
out.
wow.
So yeah, and more to come.
Okay.
So, yeah. The problem with the labs right now is they're just getting their methodology for the microbial testing.
Okay.
That's
Yeah,
kind of the
that's
hold
kind
up.
of the required thing.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Very good, Michelle. Thank you so much for coming up here. Faster with timekeeping, but hopefully my past promptness is make up for it. But anyway, I guess we have two table items: disabled vet discounts and scheduling of next meeting. And we'll wait till everyone else comes in to talk about those.
I had one other thing I wanted to discuss on the talking with the administration, but I don't know if there's anyone here from the administration to talk to about these items, this law enforcement stuff again. I mean, what can we do about getting the names on this? Has there been any progress since the last meeting? But if there's anyone here to answer that.
Yeah, Aaron got subpoenaed and couldn't be here this
Yeah.
afternoon.
I don't know that you can speak to this.
I don't have anything.
Yeah.
I don't have anything.
But I didn't mean to exclude you when I said I don't think there's anybody here.
No,
I just wanted to know that I knew that you didn't know. Yeah.
You know me well now.
Yeah.
I don't know stuff like that.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's the smart move. That's why you rise up. So.
There's other things I do. Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to first ask, we have the bylaw amendments on the agenda. And so if anyone here feels that the financial report was satisfactory, remember we've got that ultimatum. And I know we've got them just where we want them.
I know.
So
it's great. It's really got him stressing. You see him sweating. I hear you.
So if anyone feels the financial report was satisfactory, then please make a motion to approve the bylaw amendments from December 12th.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, let me ask, was it the same format as today?
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to, actually what I'll do is instead, I'll actually just, can I withdraw that amendment? Or not, I guess I can.
The leverage amendment? Or
yeah, the leverage amendment, yeah.
Well, you don't have to.
Well, I guess I can just say, well, I guess I wouldn't feel an integrity saying I got a full report.
We can put it on the record that you were not satisfied.
Yeah, put on the record that I wasn't satisfied, but I will lovingly recant that ultimatum, should we say.
Okay. All right. I mean, we got them just where we want.
Yeah, exactly. I know, boy. It's like, I know.
Okay.
I'm backing down.
All right. Okay. So we'll get to that agenda item. We'll start with the subcommittee and other reports for now. Again, I apologize for not issuing a written report, but the Horticulture Research and Safety Committee, basically we've been working a little bit on these lab testing requirements for the dispensary bills, for the dispensary rulemaking, but we haven't been functioning as a committee too well. There's a lot of interest in people joining this subcommittee, but there's not much interest for actually participating on the committee. So I am not going to be renewing this subcommittee, possibly in the future when there's greater interest and a reasonable belief that there's going to be some good participation in that committee. So I won't be renewing that. That's also something we're doing today is renewing the authorization for the subcommittees, and which at this point are the Horticulture Research Subcommittee, which I'm not renewing. There's going to be the Outreach Committee, which is doing a wonderful job, and the Legislative Liaison Committee that Jim is chairing, and is a fairly new committee. So anyway, Horticultural Research and Safety Committee is going to be disbanded for now. I want to give a more detailed chair report, but mostly I've been working as I serve on the Rules Advisory Committee for the dispensary program, but I've also, as chair, been kind of the ACMM liaison to the dispensary program. So I kind of utilize my dual roles in that. And the ACMM's scope is to advise the program, the director of the Oregon Health Authority on the administrative aspects of the Oregon Medical Marijuana Act. So that now includes both the OMMP and the OMMDP. So that's something we, the expanded role of our advising is also that. So we're going to be wanting, so the next chair is probably going to be wanting to talk with Tom Burns about getting financial reports from that program.
And may I add to that? So what you saw today, and in fact, you got the news when I got the news about this work group about integrating the programs.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. So obviously, Tom Burns is the one to deal with.
Oh, yes.
On everything.
That's what it seems like.
Yeah, on everything. So I would encourage you absolutely to develop that relationship. Don't know how long he'll be in that mode, but he's in it for now. And there's big decisions yet to be made about where these programs are located and all these kinds of things. So, and without picking at the scab, I would also plan to move this fee reduction thing into that work group setting as part of the overall, right? Okay, so that's where I would head with it.
Very good.
So do we still need a liaison with that group since there is no RAC, or is it this new group that will be doing that? My point is, okay, Todd is not eligible to be chair any longer, and he has been, he was involved in the RAC, and he has been the point person with us, so I'd like to keep him. I'd actually make a motion to keep Todd as the liaison with the Oregon Medical Marijuana Dispenser, I hate that word, facility group, to continue doing that, as opposed to having the chair do it, unless there's a reason that people think that we shouldn't do it that way. I just think for continuity it would be really good because he's already developed that relationship.
Yeah, I'd like to further that comment with, I kind of took from Tom the fact that this group that he was talking about was going to be something that they were going to be choosing those people.
That's what I heard.
So, I mean, is there going to be a application process or even a wish list? That's what I say, because, I'm sure that if Todd applies or any of us apply, because it sounded like that's what they wanted, that they're going to be making that choice, and maybe it could be all of it, maybe it'd just be those who choose, that's a part of that process. I didn't understand how they were going to make that selection.
I don't think Tom does either.
Okay.
Yeah. So to be determined. That's what I heard.
But
All to be determined. Yes.
Sandy?
Well, I think you're gonna go to Cheryl's motion.
Yeah, Cheryl made a motion.
Yeah,
Second.
I second it.
Okay. I would just like to make a friendly amendment and also create a OMMDP dispensary program subcommittee, and I'd be happy to chair that.
And that's fine with that. I'll second that amended motion.
Okay. Any discussion?
Yes. What is the problem with applying to be on that committee?
Nothing. This is just an ACMM function. This is the ACMM making sure that we have good advising to the dispensary program. and especially in its new stages, it requires a lot of attention. And so since I've been very involved in that process, I'd like to continue that. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. And so this is in the middle of my my chair report. Of course, it didn't say uninterrupted here. That's just fine. Anyway, other than that, I just want to keep it short and simple. But basically, I've enjoyed serving on this committee and serving as chair. And I have 2 more years left as an ACMM member before I get termed out. And it hasn't always been easy, but and even though our advice has been rejected multiple times for multiple reasons, it's
sometimes taken.
Sometimes taken, and it's been an overall good experience. So I'm really honored to work with this group. We have a superstar group of experts, and my parting words are to please respect the advice that this superstar group has to offer.
I want to interrupt real quick.
Good. So how about we move on to outreach report?
Got it. So our outreach committee has been really busy since our last meeting. I'm going to start with the disappointing news. The cover letter that we've been trying to get corrected for over a year has still not been updated. Just so you know what I'm talking about, the letter that goes out with the ID cards when somebody is registered is a 1-page letter that I got when I registered I've already registered again and got the same cover letter. The problem with the cover letter, as we've discussed before, is it doesn't give a link to the website. It doesn't talk about how to get the law. It doesn't talk about the law at all. And how I heard about it the first time is a patient had gone to his doctor had filled out his forms, he got registered, and he absolutely knew nothing about the law, other than that he was a legal medical marijuana patient. He didn't know anything about the limits of the law, or the very scary part that if you break the law in some cases you're a Class A felon with no defense. And so we thought this was an extremely important issue for over a year, and that letter actually finally got corrected after we submitted the letter. Then Aaron and people worked on it, and they got the letter ready to go. And then Tawana said, or Aaron told me, I guess it was, that they decided they had to completely rewrite the whole letter. Now this has been a year, and this same cover letter is going out, and I honestly cannot understand why this program couldn't be held legally liable if somebody got busted for over an amount. Say they had a plant that was a couple inches too tall and it fell into Class A felony, and nobody in the program had ever told them how to access the law, because that's what's happening right now. And Aaron told me when I called him, he said it would be a little disappointing that we still don't have the cover letter done, and it's just outrageous. Okay, so on a brighter note, things are looking up and looking really good for the 8th National Clinical Conference on Cannabis Therapeutics, May 8th, 9th, and 10th. I hope you'll all be there. It's an amazing event. The Oregon Health Authority has agreed to pay for the luncheon on Friday, and Tom Burns is going to be speaking. We've also asked Tawana to come, and Kelly Page, and Kelly's already said she'll definitely try to be there. So that is a really good thing. We're now trying to get the word out to the healthcare providers for whom continuing education credits are very valuable, especially when things are going down. And So we've got different things going. Cheryl has tracked down, Cheryl Smith, which you see down there, has tracked down all the contacts for the hospice patients, the hospice chapters. Marilyn Mathry is writing or she's contacting the nursing community. She is an addiction nurse. And other members are writing letters and announcing the conferences to their networks. We are also have I think we should ask the Oregon Health Authority, OMMP, to put out an announcement, which could be read press release, that would go out announcing this conference. I would like to see them send that press announcement out to every media outlet in the state. But if they were not to do that and just put the announcement out there, I'd be sure it got to every media outlet in the state and to the hospice people. We also have a list of the doctors who have signed, but no contact information for most of them. So that made it harder. That's why we think that an announcement from the OHA would carry a lot of weight and let people know that this is going on. The continuing education credits is really a big thing in our state. It's a really big thing, and I'm very excited about it. The National College on Naturopathic Medicine will inform the naturopaths, and Maryland is working with the Nurses Association. Now, I don't know how many of you have followed the different agencies, but the Nurses Association has always been very opposed, as people here know, to the whole medical marijuana program. And even though we went to conferences where they were, and we met face to face with many of the nurses, one-on-one, when the vote came down, they always voted against us. And they also were funding, put a bunch of money into the meetings that the Chambers of Commerce were having across the state. And that's the one in Albany where Alice and I don't know, somebody else were actually thrown out of the meeting we'd already paid for. They wouldn't let us into the meeting. In the end, thanks to some help from an attorney we knew, we were able to get our expenses paid back. They were so afraid of us. They were, for no reason. There was no reason. Anyhow. Okay, in conclusion, we offer two action items. We propose that the ACMM first ask that the OHA, OMMP make an official announcement of the conference to be sent to the media around the state. And secondly, that the OMMP be allowed to make simple changes to the forms. That's the whole problem here. They're having to wait for, I can't remember the agency, to change these forms, and they could do it themselves. It would have been done a long time ago. And I think that it is possible that they could be allowed to change these forms themselves. And we've seen this over the years, how long it takes to get anything changed. Even the application forms are often way behind that. So again, we would like an official announcement of the conference request, and also that the OMMP be allowed to make simple changes to the forms themselves so that the forms that they are sent out can be corrected in a timely manner. And that is respectfully submitted. And
ready for discussion on that? Done with your report?
Yeah.
Will you restate that motion?
Okay, I didn't know I was motioning, but I will motion.
Oh,
The OHA, OMMP make an official announcement of the conference to be sent to the media around the state, and I would say next month would be appropriate, and that the OMMP be allowed to make simple changes to forms themselves so that the forms that are sent out can be corrected in a timely manner.
Second.
Any discussion?
I think it'd be easier if those were separated as two motions, since they're not related.
I can do that.
Yeah.
Motion number one, the first line.
Yeah. Okay, motions are separated.
Okay.
Second.
That
First
would be
one's the
about
press
the
release.
announcement.
Second on motion number one. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Your second motion.
Motion number two, several changes be made by the program themselves to forms so they can be sent out and corrected in a timely manner.
Second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. And yeah, I just want to especially thank the outreach committee and for promoting this conference. It's so important for the education of health professionals and et cetera. And also,
I have a conference question, if I could. Sandy, did you guys figure out the CEU stuff that you needed to do?
Oh, they're already there. They're already set up by the
Okay, so
University of California, San Francisco. They've been doing it for a few years.
Yeah, because we were kind of looking on our side
Oh,
and
that's
found out that we've actually given up on trying to get CEUs for our own stuff.
Oh, well, they can
It's
do
too
a
hard.
conference.
It's too dang hard. So it
Yeah.
sounds like you got.
It's already
that's
covered.
Okay.
Thank you.
of course, thank you, OMMP,
Yeah.
for
everything,
approving
yes.
this.
Yeah.
And working with us. It's very important. And I also want to acknowledge a couple of presenters here. Michelle, you're presenting at the conference?
Yes.
Yes, what's your topic?
It's gonna be on cannabis as an herb, the herbal classification.
Very good. Sandy, are you presenting too?
My daughter is presenting. We're talking about the importance of educating patients.
Good. And I'll be presenting on cannabis production for regulated market. And then there's also a couple other events going on too. On the 8th, Weberger is developing a CLE for attorneys. So I'm going to be also presenting on expert witness issues for that. So I don't think he's announced it yet, but it's going to be pretty soon. And then American Nurses Association, or American Cannabis Nurses Association. Is there still an event planned for the 8th?
Yes.
That's a Thursday, right?
Yeah. Do you want to announce that?
Sure, I'll announce there's an event for nurses. It's theoretically going to be CEU credentialed through the Ohio Nurses Association, but the essential purpose of it is to do a basic cannabis nursing educational seminar, which will be a one-day event that nurses who have no knowledge or little knowledge can join and have hopefully CEUs attached to their participation and successful completion in order to start actually educating nurses who are incredibly ignorant, who have not a clue about almost any of it. And so that will also be going concurrently with the lawyers.
And Julia, how will that be announced? Will there be like a web link or something that nurses can find out about?
Well, there is on the ACNA website, and also I presume they're going to be doing some more outreach and communication, but yeah,
Isn't
the
it
ACNA
on the
website.
Patient Out of Time website too?
It is, yes, there is a link on the Patients Out of Time website for it.
Very good. So thanks again, Outreach Committee, for that great work. And okay, so we have 4 people five people signed up for the public comments. I know. I'm just saying. So that means we're going to have time to go beyond 2 o'clock and probably get everything else done. So we still need to be a little efficient. So anyway, we have a legislative liaison report.
Well, the report really is more of a request than to be able to make a report, because I needed to find out if all the people who requested to be on the liaison who aren't here, which were the 2 that I sent in, plus I believe Jim Gregg and Anthony Taylor, for being on that commission, if they're in the email queue, or if there's a way we can put them in the email queue of the ACMM.
I think you need to create your own email queue for the subcommittee.
Okay, and then just also include, because really one of the most important things about the liaison is for the liaison, or not the liaison, but for the OMMP to be able to express what they would like to see when it comes to the issues that we've been dealing with for this 14, 16 years, to maybe get input or actual verbiage put in certain legislation that's going to come out, or people are thinking about doing about this. If the OHA is going to be looking at doing legislature further down the road and it's strictly medicinal like we are, it'd be nice, maybe through this thing that Tom's talking about, that we have a way to know what that is, so as a body, including the administration, we can say, well, this is what we can see has been a problem. We need kind of like these after 14-year, house cleaning changes made, stuff like how do we change the 12 by 12 rule, which should have gone away a long time ago. That's something that from this body and this group that kind of needs to be gotten out there and added into other legislation. And also the ability to, well, Peter Buckley, for instance, Representative Buckley, is already he's one of the people that wants to hear from us. He's one of the people that's probably the most heavily behind us. So, I have a really good communication line with him. And on the Senate side, Senator Roeblen, so that maybe we can start getting some of these changes made that we as, not just the ACMM, but the whole program need to be done through the legislature. And that's why it's not just a matter of being going to the legislature, talking to people to see what they're doing. It's about us being able to, put in as a body, like the OMMP, suggestions or pieces of legislation and ongoing other pieces that we know we need. Whether it's an increase for, fees for employees on the OMMP or whatever it is that has to be done legislatively, particularly through the OHA, that we have a way to accomplish that. And so that's really what the liaison is hoping to do. Any brand new outside legislation is a totally different thing, and I think all the groups that are out there doing their thing are doing what they can. But right now, when we have people that don't think that the ACMM, because of its makeup or its stature or the disdain for the OMMP, we're really not being listened to. But I do believe that there are legislature voters out there who will listen to it coming from the body, with all of our approval. And that's what I hope to accomplish with that. And so really a lot of the input I hope to hear, not only from those of us here who have been involved over the last 8 years or 14 totally, can come up and try to get rid of some of the cobwebs, that need legislative fixes. And even as the ACMM, we probably don't know what the administration needs. But I'm sure the administration, needs, when law enforcement wants a building, they get together with Andy Olson and tell him what they want, and they pop out 1531, So why can't we, as the OMMP, and the group here say, we believe that this should be done, let's get it in, maybe do it short things one at a time, so they can't be, shut out for non-medical reasons.
Well, I think I would just add to that, you guys had some success in 2013. You were 2 for 2, or 1.5 for 2. I don't think you called the field a win, but it was in the right direction. I think you would agree. So,
yeah, we're totally unaccustomed to getting what we want.
But the point is, there's an important lesson there, and we're figuring out too that it's not helpful for our agency to go to the legislature when someone else can go do it. And I think you guys
kind of proved some of that last time, so.
But when the OHA can go to the legislature in support of something that we support, then that's
Well,
even better.
Yeah, and that's not always possible in the political climb, you know, but you at least get neutral outputs, you know, just like on any other external thing.
And
so, you know,
also
but
there's
you can be very
a little
effective. I
bit
guess,
of being in front of the 8 ball for the future of what's happening from the medicinal values, like the OHA at some point or another, we hope, gets to the point to where they figure out how to allow people, particularly those on OHP or Blue Cross Blue Shield or something, to allow the doctor visits or the medicine even to be, dealt with under insurance. I mean, someday or another they're going to get around to that because they're going to find out, hey, we'll let this person have their $10 worth of cannabis in a month. And oh, by the way, it just saved us $2,000 in Oxycontin. You know, and I think that's something that eventually they're going to.
All right, well, thank you, Jim.
And the only other thing I'd say as far as the report goes, I think everything that's happening is happening so quick right now. What I knew the day before yesterday is no longer the same as it was today or will be tomorrow. It's very active out there.
Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is to reauthorize the subcommittees and the members. And one note, there's nothing in our bylaws that requires a subcommittee chair to be an ACMM member. And does everyone else have that reading of the bylaws? I'm just saying that just in case you want to remain chair of the liaison committee. I don't see anything in the bylaws that prevents that. And if that's what you want to do.
As long as everybody agrees.
Very good. So with that in mind, are you ready to propose reauthorization for your committee?
Yeah, I'd like to do that. And I'd also like to be on your committee also. We just started.
Very good, very good. All right, so I want you to make a motion to reauthorize your committee and list the members.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to reauthorize the committee, and I'll just send a bulk email to I guess about 4 people off the committee I know. I have their email addresses, and then get them into that loop like you suggested, and to make sure that all that correspondence gets read by administration.
I'll second that. And you could probably just send a list to Tracy and she could add it to the minutes.
And do you want to just list the members that you can remember? Just so you have members that are on the committee after this meeting.
Like I said, Anthony Taylor, Jim Gregg, there were 2 off. The 2 other members are on the file in one of the ACMM posts because I put basically the biographies for each person. And so those are already there. One of them's from Ben.
Let's stick with what we know for this meeting, for the purposes of this meeting, just because we're authorizing, we need to know.
Well then, who on
and then you could add people at the next meeting if you like, and they can still participate.
So who all on the ACMM now? Alice?
I'm on the legislative, yeah.
Okay. And then you as chair?
Yes.
Okay. Great. Second to the motion?
I second it.
Okay. All those in favor of reauthorizing the legislative liaison committee with Jim Clark as chair and everyone he mentioned as members?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Outreach committee.
This will be my last year here. The outreach committee was my baby because I still about the education, you know, I'm that way, and it's about all drugs, and I actually really see cannabis and what's happening with the medical marijuana facilities as an opportunity to use cannabis as a way to get people to look at all the drugs that they're taking. And I just hope we get some money for that somewhere. I know they have money in Colorado, but I don't see it here. And I would like to be chair if our group would like me to be chair one more time. The people who are now on it are Ben McInnes, Cheryl Smith, Shara Bennett, Kristen Gustafson, and myself. We had some other people in South County, but they never responded or ever, so those would be the people I would suggest to be back on the committee.
Good.
I would like to, is it possible I'd like to be on the committee?
Oh, yeah. Anybody else? Means you have to answer the emails.
Yeah, good. Anybody second that?
I'll second it.
Very good. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Can I just clarify?
Sure.
She is continued to be the chair, correct?
That was part of the motion, yeah.
Who wants to be next time? Start talking.
Okay. And are there any ACMM members interested in joining the dispensary program subcommittee? Jim Clark, Brian Michaels, Ben McInnes, Sarah Bennett. Okay. All right. So I make a motion to add those people I just mentioned to the dispensary program subcommittee, and myself as chair.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Very good. Okay, disabled vet discount. Yes.
How about the horticultural research and safety?
I decided to not renew that for lack of participation.
So are you stepping down as chairman?
Well, I'm not making a motion to renew the committee, but if someone else wants to renew the committee with good intent to follow through, then that would be great.
I would consider being the chair of the research committee.
You'll consider it while are you making a motion?
I will make a motion.
Okay.
Second that.
Very good. Second motion. Do you have any members to add to that?
No, I would like to look at that and welcome those to sit on it and go through that discussion.
Okay, well, I would be happy to be a member of it.
Just, they need to be
Yeah.
nominated and voted on, that's the, could we somehow leave it open-ended somehow to add other people than the two of you, or do you think the two of you
I mean,
are really what's gonna be?
effectively, you could get, in a list of participation of people that to be officially on it, just wait till next meeting. 2 members would be
Yeah,
fine
you guys-
to start a committee.
You'll
and-
probably be
Yeah, and I'll send you some names of people who are interested in participating that I haven't been able to vet out as to whether they're actually going to, but I'll pass all that information
Do
to
they
you.
have to be Oregon residents?
No, I mean,
That's interesting, yeah.
I mean, since non-Oregon residents can be card holders, they're stakeholders of our program, so, yeah, okay.
I nominate
Okay.
Barney Frank.
All right, so we have a motion. So we have a motion, do we have a second?
I second that.
You seconded. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay. Disabled vet discount. Do you have any further thoughts on?
Well, of course, I want to give them, but I also want to figure out a way that we can draw attention to the other people who need the same level of discount.
I have a suggestion.
Yes.
That could go before this work group that's gonna happen,
Beautiful,
looking
yeah.
at the whole program.
Okay?
I had a comment on that too. It doesn't make sense to me that you're picking people who have 100% disability, who have a higher amount. If somebody's got 80 or 90% disability, they're poorer, and then they're not eligible for the discount. So
Exactly.
what is the intent of the discount? I thought it was to help poor people.
No, the discount is to help 100% disabled vets. We vetted that with the legislator.
Do you not take into account their financial situation?
No, it
That
has nothing to
people
do
with
with that.
30%, well, that's completely wrong.
Well, I'm not defending
You're,
it or
No,
anything. I'm
it's
just the
winners,
messenger.
winners and losers
I'm
are
just-
in learning,
yeah, I'm
and
just
it's
the
not based on
messenger.
actual need, and
Right.
that's wrong. This is a patient medical program. We have to look at what people really need, period.
In the past,
Sandy, yes.
in the past, we couldn't add SSD because they didn't show financial need. We were able to do SSI because they showed financial need. And when I'm seeing that the program can just kind of do this, you can just do this if we vote to support it.
Well, again, not our idea.
I know it's not,
Not our
but
idea.
you have the
No.
authority to make change in-house.
To do this.
Okay, like in the past, when we added SSI, it was an in-house change. We tried to get SSD included, we were told no.
No, don't know about that.
Okay, well, that's what happened, and it was the reason that was given, I realize this didn't come from you
But
guys.
this is a very
legislature.
narrow
Yeah.
scope proposal.
But in the past, people who could not prove financial need have been denied a reduction in price. So based on that, and this isn't very popular because I'm gonna say that I don't support this bill because I don't think it's fair to all the patients who are disadvantaged.
Well, do note that it says 100% service-connected disability or who receive a pension from the VA based on a finding of indigency and disability by the VA.
Yeah,
I think it would be
just-
really,
How was that finding?
wouldn't sound too good if we were to say we want to cut out 100% disabled because, you know.
No, I'm not saying that, I'm saying I don't support this bill or whatever it is.
And that's what we're
Because I
saying
think
then.
it's not fair to the other people who are financially disadvantaged.
I hear you.
I would like to put on record that I do support this bill, and the reason is because I would rather help some than none.
Well, that's what we've been doing in the past.
Yeah, well, they're all baby steps, so I like to see the support of our troops.
Well, I agree with Sarah on, I mean, I do agree with Sandy about the non-income. But I also agree that by adding it, I mean, especially since the second criteria, the VA indigency and disability, I think that is, is income dependence. And I think, supporting this, adds assistance to people who are, either financially disabled or physically disabled. And it just serves our most needy patients a little better, even though it doesn't help everybody who needs it. So for that reason, I'm supporting it. And then Alice, Ben, and then Sandy. Okay.
All I would say just very quickly was that one, because there's an impact, financial impact, it will only be $5,000, that's not 5 patients that would be actually currently affected. But with the addition of PTSD once again, and because of this, I would support this as well.
I think we could support it with a recommendation that it be
Yeah.
lowered,
That's
come
the
up
way-
with some other percent, like 60%, 80%.
Or just strike
something
that.
so that more people who are more likely to be poor are covered.
Why don't we just strike the 100%?
Exactly,
Just
and
strike
no
that
percent,
100%,
and
yeah.
those veterans with
Correct.
Well,
disabilities.
I would like to point out also, these veterans have medical care. The other people I'm talking about, a lot of
Make a
them
lot
don't
more
have
money
any
than I
medical
do,
care.
so-
So I like Cheryl's idea. I don't really want to say don't give the vets a break. I really don't. I just want to say this isn't good enough.
Brian.
Yeah.
Now let's make this the last comment.
I
before
just
we
think
vote
it's
on
sort of oil and water to talk about vets who are disabled and people who are financially disabled. I don't know that they are mutually, I think they are mutually exclusive. I don't know that they're really tied together where one has to rise with the other or fall with the other. And so I think those are very independent conversations. One of the strong arguments in getting PTSD through the legislature is, what do? You support your vets or do you hate marijuana? What's your choice? And if you support your vets, well, they need this stuff. And I think supporting the vets, especially the disabled vets, it's a good thing to do. But B, I really, really, really want to rethink some message leaving this committee to somebody out there that said, oh, ACMM's against disabled vets. I think that sets us back a long way with people who might be coming our way. So I would also take out the 100% and make it even more so. And keep fighting for the financially disabled. It's not an either or sort of deal.
Both that, yeah.
And ACMM comes out with supporting disabled vets. I like that. I like that a lot.
Well, I support disabled vets.
No, I mean, but in this bill.
I support that aspect of it. I
So
just
I
think
move-
it doesn't go far enough.
I move that we accept this recommendation with the omission of 100%. Open all the way,
Okay.
open
for disabled vets.
Just take away 100%, and so
Yeah.
the
Okay.
service-connected disability.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yep.
Okay,
That was my
and can I just make a friendly amendment to, instead of omitting or deleting that, that we support this proposal with only double I, 3E double I as the criteria. That way we're not excluding anything, we're just, it's more inclusive than exclusive. Oh, it's the receives pension from the VA based on a finding.
Oh, I'm looking at the statement of need and fiscal
Okay.
impact. Do we not have that?
Okay. Yeah, we're looking at the Oregon Administrative Rule.
Page 3 of 3.
Yeah, 33, okay, for the record, 333-008-0020. The proposed language for the administrative rule. Make a friendly amendment to adopt this rule change with 3E-II, subsection 3E-II as the only criteria. So it's the top of page 3.
No, it's,
Right
Anyway, I mean, that's, it's the same effect, I'm just trying to,
It's actually not.
more inclusive than exclusive, but
It's
it's
3A,
simpler to just say.
it's 3
It's not.
C E double I.
Oh, I'm sorry, you are right, you are correct.
And additionally,
That's why I couldn't-
if you did that, you would only do people that were indigent and disabled.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't be exactly.
Page
Okay.
3, top of the
Okay, never mind, Cheryl's motion is fine, I just didn't want to go on record excluding people. It's like, rather include some, okay, anyway.
That's fine.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
And the motion is,
Yeah, let's hear one.
work out the 100%.
To omit the 100%, yeah. Okay. Second, okay.
Could you repeat the motion?
That we accept the modified administrative rule eliminating the 100%, the requirement of 100% service-related disability.
Yeah, let's rephrase that and say, that the OMMP supports the adoption of the proposed rule change, section of OAR 333-008-0020, as worded with the deletion of subsection there's 2 3s.
The addition of 3 C double I, are there?
3C single I.
3.
Double I?
I think the numbering, but anyway.
It's 3C
D
double I.
double I believe it is.
But there's there's
There's a
2
little C and a
3s.
big C.
I think this is numbered improperly.
Can we
But anyway,
reference page 2
The
last
small
sentence?
letters
Very
supersede
good.
the large letters.
Yes.
The small letters supersede the large letters. That's how these are written.
yeah.
So that the larger C is a subset of the, in this case, the smallest.
Small one, yeah.
Except there's 2 subsection 3s is the problem.
Are you
so.
sure they're on the same?
But anyway, we'll just simplify it. We adopt these proposed rules with the exception of the last 2 sentences of page 2.
No, we're just, basically, we're striking 100% period. Or we accept this in its entirety, striking,
It's just the syntax
striking
of-
100%.
One of those sentences happens to begin with 3E, but it's just a continuation of the sentence before it. There's only 2 number 3s.
Yeah.
There's only the one number 3.
In that section.
And that's it.
Okay. Okay, yeah, and, okay, so deleting the last two sentences of page 3 and amending subsection 3,
3C.
3CD.
Two.
Double I, or one, single I, 100%.
Okay, I think we know what we all mean. I think Tracy understands too.
Do you?
Right?
Well, we'll look
And I have the audio.
And they never listen to us anyway, so.
Okay, so at the risk of saying I'm not following it.
Yeah.
Is the recommendation to accept this and just without the 100%.
Right.
Okay.
With
And
just
then,
one
and yeah, okay, we'll figure out if that, I don't know all the legal aspects of this and why it's 100%, why that's what the legislator wanted. I think it's because that's who's on the disability pensions.
The 100%.
100%.
So are the other ones.
And we have,
So I don't know. I'll talk to Shannon about that.
But basically, just
She'll
want
figure
the
it out.
largest
Or-
group of
because they
disabled
have that as
veterans
an
they
or.
can get.
100%
That's the
or.
intent, is
Yeah.
basically we want that many, they're disabled veterans.
And we'll see if that in fact does make the group larger, maybe it doesn't.
Whatever.
all right, let's
Yeah,
move
gotcha.
along here. Okay, we have a second.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Okay.
I think
We have, can we do a real quick clinic oversight?
Well, in fact, this could be something for that group that's gonna be looking at the OMMP. This came up, I'll be quick about it, this came up because we have patients coming in who are reporting that they're seeing a doctor for 8 minutes, they're talking to a doctor over the phone, getting their card, they're going to a clinic, being sent to an acupuncturist, who then writes some medical records, sends them back to the clinic where they get their card. And when I look at the administrative rules, they aren't meeting the
I have a
requirements.
question.
Yeah,
They get their cards from us.
okay, they get recommended for a card.
Yeah, nobody
Okay,
issues
I got it,
cards.
I got it, yes.
Except us.
But they get recommended
Correct.
by a physician
And we review it.
for a card. Right. But you don't review what goes on behind the scenes that led the doctor to sign that.
No.
That's the Board of Medical
That's
Examiners'
the board of medical
responsibility.
exam.
They call the doctor and verify.
I'm not sure what problem you're trying to solve.
The
What's the
problem-
presenting problem that comes out and faces us in there and says, hey, look, I shouldn't have gotten a card? Is that the presenting problem?
I think the presenting problem is that the rules are being violated in order to give people cards. And I think it doesn't look well for a medical marijuana program when, once again, we're like California where anybody can go in and get a card for any reason. If that's the law we want to pass, then let's do it, you know? But that isn't what that's not what the rules say.
Well, all that might be true, but what would you, I mean, any real response to that is probably going to send this pendulum in the whole extreme other direction.
It's just that the
I
program
mean, you'll end
has
up
the
with Levesque all over again.
Yeah. The program has the authority to at least look at records and, you know, have some oversight, and they choose not to, and there's a lot of extra money right now.
For anybody who, you know, the physicians that have a lot of patients, it would require more reporting from them.
Yeah, and I'm not just
Yeah,
talking
and
about,
we-
I'm
and
not
we
just
do
talking
that.
about physicians, I'm talking about the clinics.
Oh, yeah, we don't regulate the clinics at all.
And no one does.
Yeah, that's true.
Right.
Nobody
I understand.
regulates other clinics other than the Board of Medical Examiners.
Oh,
they do.
actually, yeah,
Okay.
our
Okay.
healthcare regulation quality improvement program does regulate.
And quite
There you go.
frankly, I've
Yeah,
been
well,
prescribed.
that's one aspect. You know, there are
prescriptions
confidentiality
advocates on my
issues, there are all
many
kinds of
times that have
issues,
nothing
not
to
just
do at all with
physicians.
cannabis. I've been going to them for over 20 years.
I don't see any way that the ACMM could be involved or the OMMP in regulating clinics. We can't even get a form changed in a year.
They could at
And
least-
we do
There
that-
could at least be some guidelines, okay? There was a clinic that closed down, and I had all these patients coming to me saying, where are my medical records? I don't know where my medical records are. I called the OMMP, I was referred to the Board of Medical Examiners. They said it wasn't their job. I was referred to that quality group that came and reviewed our medical records. They said it wasn't their job. What are the clinics? Are they medical clinics? Are these medical records? Are they to be maintained? like medical records? I mean, I'm just kind of stuck with all of this, trying to be legal, trying to meet the requirements of a medical clinic, but then being rebuffed by everybody and told that, you know, what, basically, I guess it doesn't matter. Do we not have any obligation to keep people's medical information confidential? Do we not have any obligation to run clinics the way that the program was meant to do?
Art?
Is there a number of, you know, evaluations that can be done, and after which, in other words, is there a threshold? They say you can only do so many anywhere in the statutes? I
Yeah,
could look at-
450, and then you have to provide additional information.
Okay, 'cause there
Although
was
you
just
could
that
also get an
article-
audit and be exempt from that requirement.
There was just that article about the guy that did 4,000, you know, do some kind of.
But he was in Washington, right?
It's actually, it's an Oregon,
Oh.
he is in Washington, but it's an Oregon issue.
Oh, he did it in Oregon.
Well, he's duly licensed and he does approvals. He used to be a compassion center doctor a long time ago.
Oh,
too.
really?
Yeah, but yeah, because Washington was giving him trouble because he was writing recommendations for asthma, you know, being bronchiospasm, which may not be jive with Washington's
Muscle spasm.
rules, but it does with Oregon's because it does cause, you know, it is a muscle spasm, and they also mistakenly said he also. But anyway, in our experience, the Board of Medical Examiners has been very diligent about disciplining physicians who don't keep adequate records and are falling below the standard practice of medicine. So that seems like that's the way to go, and they respond, you know, to complaints, especially if more than 2 complaints, I think, you know, triggers them to respond.
So people should be told to call the medical board to complain about a doctor rather than about the clinic?
Yeah,
If
yeah.
the
I mean,
medical
if
records
it's
are concerned,
if it's a valid claim, then they
Yeah.
should. I mean, there
Yeah.
shouldn't be any frivolous stuff. You know, we shouldn't be, you know, any
And that's
frivolous
probably
stuff.
the-
Also, at Renee Clinic, we often have patients who can't get their records from not on a clinic, but just a regular doctor, they just disappear. And it happens all the time.
Really? I've never had that.
Oh, yeah, it's amazing. I mean, it's not supposed to happen, but it does
Yeah,
happen.
by law, it should.
Yeah, but
Those are the
I-
ones that need to report.
And the other thing that's happening a lot right now, this isn't really, is people are going in with cards and being cut off their medicines, their opiates. And they're not being weaned off their opiates. They're being cut off their opiates right now. And that's happening more and more and more as the VA has loosened up and said you can have both. This other thing is happening more and more and more. And I just had an issue with a fellow who was cut off. He got a hold of me 2 months into the cutoff. He was jonesing like crazy. He was a VA patient. He fought, and he not only got his drugs back, he got his medical marijuana card back. And so that the patients have to learn to fight for themselves. They have to learn to call a medical board and complain themselves. And I just don't see any way that the OMMP or the ACMM could possibly regulate the clinics.
Maybe it could be included.
Well, the one
Okay.
problem with the
Anyway.
DEA
Yeah,
initiative, because they have DEA licenses in order to prescribe those drugs, the DEA is trying to, or in the process of stamping out any of those DEA drugs with marijuana. And so they're sending these, I don't know what you call them, letters, initiatives, recommendations, whatever. If you use if you give out medical marijuana, it's contraindicated, and that's in this, so a lot of doctors are just backing right off. Some, because it's not a directive, I guess that's the right word, where they're not required to do that, but they're strongly recommended. A lot of doctors, you know,
They're
just
scared.
terrified of this.
Yeah.
So they
But
just
they
act
leave
right
their
off.
patients hanging with no, I mean, cut off right now.
Have you met doctors? I mean, come on, of course.
All right, I
DEA
think we're
is
gonna
more
have
powerful
to
than their patients.
move along here. We've got a couple more items.
No offense to Dr. Jerry.
Sure. About the bylaws, we have bylaws with my recommended amendments. So I would suggest I would make a motion to approve these with the changes that I noted here. But I think if we have discussion, if there's discussion or other amendments, we should probably table it to next meeting. So.
I think we should table, we also have my suggested changes at the end of yours, and so it's not really clear on, to me, what we'd be voting on.
Okay, let's table that to the next meeting, and so, I don't think we have to motion, but yeah, so in the meantime, this is old history here, so let's read up on it and make good decisions next meeting. Our last two items are scheduling the next meeting and officer elections, and then public comments following that. So, does anybody have any dates for June? Myself, I would prefer anything before the 16th and prior.
I'm gone the last week, so yeah, before that. It'll be in Salem or Portland, right?
What about you?
It'll be
Yeah.
no, it'll be in probably Bend, because we do our June meetings somewhere else in Oregon, and I think last time we did it in Medford. Is that right? And so this time we'll probably do it in Bend.
Oh, okay. They'll have a little party for you.
So, yeah.
So
Yeah.
say the first week in June sometime, is that any day work?
First or second.
June's not looking good for me.
Yeah.
You need it before the 16th?
Yeah. You know, I mean, I could probably also do the 23rd.
I'm gone.
Yeah. Okay, but it's
My
just
best week is the week of the 16th.
Yeah, I'm away on that, but I'm not necessary anymore. But
Don't.
So anyway.
Well, so we have the week of the 16th out for you, and it's the only week available for you, so.
I could probably do later in the month, although I'm hoping to get away in my first vacation in 4 years. But
let's maybe then do, yeah. Is there anybody else in conflict for the first or the second week of June?
I have 2 trials back to back, and Monday, June 9th is the only day in between that. So, could do Friday the 13th.
I could do that.
Yeah, I could do that, yeah.
and that usually works for the program better, I guess, right?
Friday the 13th?
Yeah. Friday, maybe I like that. Friday, yeah.
That's good. And then good weekends and Bends then if you want to sit around.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, let's do that.
Lots
Good
of
with
brew
everybody?
house.
All right.
Friday
So,
the 13th.
sure. And of course, subject to room availability. And it would be great, we could have an audio conversation
so
later
great.
on, not this meeting, but it'd be great to reserve a room that already has amplification and stuff. Which I think the meeting room
Ben did have, yeah.
Good.
Where'd you meet?
I know what it looks like.
Was
And
it the
I think
Deschutes
it was the
County
fire
DHS
yeah.
building?
Yeah, it has a
I think
fountain
it
out
was.
front and that rock thing. It was nice.
Yeah, that, okay.
Kind of Bond, at the end of Bond Street. or
Yeah,
whatever.
that's really good, we've used it a bunch of times.
Good. Very good. Okay, now ACMM officer elections. Does anyone have a motion to make? Yes, Cindy?
I would like to nominate Ben as chair.
I would like to nominate Cheryl as chair.
Very good.
I'm sorry, vice chair.
Vice chair.
Can we just do one at a time?
Okay,
Last time I
sorry.
really hated that.
I'm sorry.
Where we had to vote for everybody in one vote.
I'm sorry.
Mhm.
Can we just do chair first?
I'll withdraw.
Sure?
Okay.
Sure?
I'll second Sandy's motion.
Second Sandy's motion. All right, any discussion? All those in favor of Ben being chair? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Welcome to chair.
Train left the station.
Gotcha! All right. Alice, did you have
I would like to nominate Cheryl for vice chair.
Very good.
Second.
Cheryl, will you do it?
Yes.
All right, we have a motion. Any discussion?
I think that'll be great.
All those in favor of Cheryl continuing to be vice chair? Say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Very good. Yay. And, well, that concludes all our business except for the public comments. So we have 5 people signed up, and does anybody mind going until about 2:47? Okay. Yeah. So why don't we take about 2 minutes each? Catherine and Jody Morgan, you're up, and then Rhea Graham's on deck. Is Catherine and/or Jody Morgan present? Okay. Rhea Graham, you're up.
Do I get their minutes too then? Okay, so I'm Rhea Graham from the Albany's Canna Kitchen. I had applied to be on the board, but was blocked. I had hoped to work with you and on the Rules Committee to represent smokeless cannabis remedies as well as patients, but alas, that was not to be. So as a result, all my patients who bring their cannabis to be converted, even though they grew it, they have to have it tested for mold, mildew, and pesticides, as well as THC and CBD once I've converted it to a smokeless cannabis remedy. And I've got 200 really upset people, as you might know, okay? Andy Olson tells me that next year in the legislation they'll carve out a piece for me. Thank you very much. They knew about me before we got started on this, you know. I had contacted him, Todd, and the other guy, but oh well. Another thing that's disturbing is that there's no delivery for shut-ins. They can't get to a dispensary and no one can take it to him. Everything has to take place under the camera of a dispensary. That's crazy.
They can have a carrier.
But not everyone does.
May I respond to that for a second? The money transaction has to happen inside. I've had this discussion a lot. For example, as long as the employee is also a card holder and is legally allowed to carry, say, 1.5 pounds, you can mail your check to the place, and that person can transport that marijuana to your house, but not receive any money for it, and go back to the place.
Seriously, that'll work?
Yeah, as long as the financial transaction is not happening at the place where the marijuana is going. So you could mail your money in, say, please deliver me whatever it is, and that person can deliver it to you without receiving any money. As long as they're legally allowed to possess that amount of marijuana, because not all employees have to have a card.
As long as they're card holders.
And as
But-
long as that's a licensed medical marijuana facility.
Yeah, like, you know, oh, yeah.
So they can't mail it?
Unless every mail carrier is a card holder.
Yeah.
And unless you're making these edibles and they're being sold, there's no reason they have to be tested or anything like that. If I'm growing
That's what the rule says.
No,
No,
if
if
you're
they're
gonna
just
sell
for
it.
the patient, if you're doing it for the patient, but if the patient then wants to take them to a dispensary and get reimbursed, then they would have to be.
Then they have to
Exactly,
be
but that's not the case. I called and spoke with Tom Burns, and he says, no, everything that comes in and goes out of there has to be tested.
Yeah,
And
he
this is
said the
unintended.
opposite- He said the opposite thing today.
Are you,
Only-
That is not true.
are
That-
you
that
a
is-
licensed, are you applying for a licensed facility?
Yes, we're already
Then
permitted
you
by our
really need to
city.
comply with that rule. If you were not, and you were just a Canna Kitchen and you were working directly with those patients, they are paying you for a service. And so you would not then be selling your product. Is that correct, guys?
That's exactly how I
Yes.
feel, Sarah, but
You're
they
not,
don't know
you're
that's
not
actually-
exchanging any money, right?
Excuse me?
You're not exchanging any money.
Of course they're paying for the service,
Processing fee.
processing, yes. I mean,
And you're
I can't
doing
put-
that with or without a medical marijuana facility card?
No, that with one.
With one.
You applied to be
You
a
just
medical
applied
marijuana
then?
facility?
Yes.
Okay, wait.
And they're
We have-
bringing the marijuana to the facility and you're processing it into the edibles and you're selling it to them?
No.
Patients bring me their cannabis. We are permitted by the city of Albany as a medical marijuana processing facility, okay?
Okay.
So we convert it to a smokeless form.
There is
Capsule.
no such thing as a medical marijuana processing
The city
facility.
can't give you that, right?
Well, the city already has, and it says right on our permit, and it has for more than 2 years, okay? Okay. I probably have it going at home. At any rate, I'll be happy to email it to you. So patients bring us their cannabis, we convert it to capsules, tincture, salve, liniments, suppositories, etc. Give them back their own cannabis product, and they give us money for processing it. All right?
And you have a
So-
medical marijuana card otherwise, right?
I do myself, yes. Yes, as a patient and caregiver. Okay, so now, this was going along, and we didn't want to be a dispensary because we really love what we do, so I call and I say, but wait a minute, I just want to make sure that we're covered. And they said, nope, Mr. Burns said, and I spoke directly to him, if you wanna keep doing that, you have to apply to be a dispenser. And I said, I don't wanna dispense. He said, that's too bad. You won't have any protection. And I said, protection from who?
He's right.
And he said, the
Right.
state.
You don't have any protection right now for what you're doing.
I can have 3 pounds with 2 employees there.
Yeah, but when you sell it back to the
I'm not
patient,
selling them anything but a service.
when you sell it, when they hand you money and you hand them edibles.
I'm not handling medical.
Well, I don't wanna get in public about it.
Okay, but
But the
We're
passing of the
not-
medical marijuana facility law doesn't impact what you're doing unless you become a medical marijuana facility.
That's right.
If you're legal now, you're legal after the facility bill and just don't become a medical marijuana facility. Because now that I understand it a little further, Mr. Burns, I think analysis is correct. Anything that goes into that facility has to be tested.
and when it comes out, test it for CBD.
Yeah, all of the above, yeah, absolutely. But if you're not a facility now and you think what you're doing is legal, then just keep doing it.
Yeah, because
Once
you're licensed, you're required to do the testing
Yeah.
upon transferring
Right.
it.
Absolutely.
He said
But if
that I
you're
cannot
not
do what I'm
licensed
doing.
and you're transferring it, then you're acting under the old OMMA laws, the existing OMMA laws, so.
He
And
says that I can't.
there is some discussion that medibles can't be made except at a manufacturing site, which means they can only be produced at a grow site.
I called on that too, and it actually, Tom Burns called me at 6 o'clock Friday night, and I have an email from him that says, oh yes, you can manufacture and dispense at the same address. So, because I brought that up to him, and they said, oh, and I.
Manufacturing as processing, but not
Yeah,
growing.
yeah,
Right,
yeah,
right.
exactly, you had to
Okay,
clean out the
yeah,
grow
yeah.
totally, yeah.
So anyway, just.
But that's
to
if
sum
you
this
wanna
up,
become a facility.
It's most likely in next year's legislative session, we're gonna be licensing producers, processors, labs, and possibly, wholesalers. For medical, and we're almost certainly gonna be talking adult use as well. So this will be resolved hopefully in 2 years.
Next year's legislative
So
session,
keep
in order to
involved
fulfill
with
the
legislative
moratorium.
liaison committee or whoever's working in the legislature and, you know, support your unique position in that.
The lead time, probably speaking with an attorney in private, is gonna be your best option.
Right now,
Also,
Okay, actually, we
no,
gotta
you
move
can't
on.
let everybody take my time. Just,
No.
I have one more thing to say. The statistics that say 453 growers are outside of Oregon, that kind of baffles me when 2 requirements are the marijuana has to be grown in the state of Oregon to be an OMP person, and the doctor has to be from Oregon. That's the only requirement. How can there be out-of-state growers?
They don't grow out of state.
Their
That's
grow
their patient.
sites are in state.
They live out of state.
They can live out of state, but their grow sites has to be in state. Good. Okay, Christy Morrison.
I withdraw my comment.
Withdraw your comment. Okay. Ryan Hansen. Is Ryan Hansen still here? Well, that leaves PK.
Oh, hi folks. Thanks for having us down here. This is Channel 23. And having this conversation. I hope everything goes square and rolls down the road.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, PK. Okay, so
You want to say anything before I turn it off, Glenn?
Yes, good night.
Good night. God bless you all, every single one of you.